Every year countless discoveries are being made. Society has never been as advanced as it is at this moment. At any given time, at the very tips of your fingers, you have access to more knowledge than some past civilizations had in their entire existence. From the ancient artifacts to theoretical quandaries, our existence is one that is filled with and possibly fueled by discoveries. So today we'll be taking a look at these interesting and mysterious discoveries. Archaeologists have said they may have solved the mystery of Roanoke. The disappearance of roughly 120 settlers in 1580s America has had people scratching their heads for centuries. The word Croatoan carved into a wooden post was all that was left of the lost colony of Roanoke. Roanoke is the name for two attempted settlements made on a single island in North Carolina by Sir Walter Raleigh. The second settlement, which was established in 1587, was established under the governor John White. Less than a year after landing, White returned home to England with the intent to bring back supplies. He left behind his own wife, daughter and granddaughter. Interestingly, his granddaughter was the first English child born in the Americas. During White's voyage back to England, war broke out with Spain, causing Queen Elizabeth I to recall all ships to battle the Spanish Armada. This delayed White's return to the island for 2 years. It was when White returned in 1590, the ominous message of Croatoan was found. The settlement remained fortified, and not a soul was present. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island called Hatteras Island, so one theory that's been put forward is that the settlers travelled to this island. An archaeologist by the name of Scott Dawson may have proven this theory to be true. He claims in his book that the colony never vanished in the first place. To back up this claim, a team of archaeologists started to carry out excavations on Hatteras Island. This was back in 2009, and after a few years of digging they started to uncover some old artifacts, including earrings, handles, copper rings and glass. Interestingly, this glass dated back to the 16th century. Scott Dawson said the following about the discovery. As much as I believe the colony went down to Hatteras, I never actually thought we were going to find it. I can't believe we found what we found. It's kind of surreal. Professor Mark Horton said that it's likely that after a while the group dispersed, and some of the settlers ended up on Hatteras Island. Paleontologists have said that recent discoveries have changed the way we view Tyrannosaurus rex. Tyrannosaurus rex has been named the king of the Cretaceous. Aside from being one of the largest of the known carnivorous dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus rex is the dinosaur that has received the most media exposure. The T-Rex has the strongest bite of any land animal, even harder than we previously thought. When computer simulations were used to simulate the T-Rex's bite, the results were quite surprising. The results were a maximum bite force of almost 13,000 pounds, about the equivalent of an adult T-Rex's body weight chomping down on its prey. This means the Tyrannosaurus rex has earned the title of the hardest biting terrestrial animal ever known. This figure means that the T-Rex had a bite force more than 7 times that of Allosaurus, a 35-foot-long dinosaur that lived 155 million years ago, and also over 3 times greater than the Australian saltwater crocodile. This giant predator lived during the Cretaceous period, from 83 million to 66 million years ago, and it was one of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs that ever lived. It measured up to 43 feet long, and weighed as much as 7 tons. Paleontologists have said that recent discoveries made in 2021 have changed the way they view this dinosaur, saying that they're learning new things about how it hunted, moved and grew. One recent discovery showed that its massive size may have been a drawback, saying that if Tyrannosaurus rex ran faster than 12 miles per hour, it would have shattered its legs. A recent discovery that reconstructed the T-Rex showed that it would have walked slow, around 3 miles per hour to be specific, meaning that a human could easily outrun it. Another discovery that's caused some controversy in the field of paleontology is that of the Pygmy T-Rex, which was given the name of Nanotyrannus, but the researchers now say was just a juvenile T-Rex. In fact, they back this up by saying that it took Tyrannosaurus rex over 20 years to reach its maximum size, and due to this extremely slow growth rate, they thought there was a smaller, almost identical dinosaur that lived during the same time, but now say this isn't the case. The paleontologists also noticed a pattern between the ages of 14 and 18, and said that this is when the dinosaur would have done most of its growing, with the team saying that between these ages the dinosaur would have doubled in size. A priceless Egyptian artifact was unknowingly sold on an auction site. When browsing online retailers selling an assortment of small donated objects on a charity website, one archaeologist found what looked to be a strange Egyptian stone being auctioned for a mere £12. Quickly, the archaeologist bought the stone in order to take a closer look at his online find, and discovered that the stone was indeed a 3,000-year-old cartouche that was in fact the seal of Ramesses II. After receiving this seal through the mail, the archaeologist who purchased the £12 piece quickly sent it to labs to be confirmed as genuine and to be appraised in value. Interestingly, the archaeologist who discovered the artifact, a man by the name of James Barmy, has also recently discovered a Viking stonework being auctioned off at a private sale that had mistakenly been identified by the auctioneers as a garden stone. This means that 2 of the most important discoveries James Barmy has made through his career as an archaeologist have been via the purchase of small misidentified trinkets from auctions and sales across the internet, making him the luckiest archaeologist in the world. Astronomers from Queensland have just discovered a new planet, but warn that it's too hot for any humans. NASA were the first to pick up on the planet back in 2019, and Dr. Brett Addison along with his team from the University of Queensland were able to confirm the discovery. TOI 1431b is estimated to be over 450 light-years away from Earth. Quite far when considering that 1 light-year is around 5,878,625,370 miles. After various tests were carried out, the astrophysicists said this planet has a daytime temperature of over 2,700 degrees, while it measured 2,300 during the night. This makes it one of the hottest planets that we've ever found, which caused researchers to call it the Hell Planet. Scientists just discovered prehistoric crocodiles that ran on 2 legs. The prehistoric world was full of strange creatures. Although some of the large theropod dinosaurs come to mind when we think of our world during prehistoric times, scientists have said this has changed in recent years, and say that our world was filled with bizarre-looking predators, with one being that of a crocodile that ran on 2 legs and hunted down dinosaurs. A team of archaeologists from the University of Colorado, Denver, were working on a site in South Korea. They discovered ancient footprints that belonged to an upright walking crocodile. This predator lived over 100 million years ago. A member of the team said the following: "People tend to think of crocodiles as animals that don't do very much. Nobody automatically thinks, I wonder what this would be like if it was bipedal, and could run like an ostrich or a T-Rex." This ancient predator is called Batrachopus grandis, and is said to have reached over 13 feet. Kyeon Soon Kim of the National University of Education said the following: "Typically, crocodiles walk in a squat stance, and create trackways that are wide." The researchers ended by saying that this running crocodile would have fed on anything that it was able to catch. Technology is always improving. Scientists and researchers are experimenting with technology more than ever. What this means is that we are making breakthroughs in different departments, and one of these is that of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence makes it possible for machines to learn from experience. This means that repetitive actions will be picked up much quicker. This is why researchers have come forward and said that certain jobs will be lost to artificial intelligence, especially those that require repetitive movements. Various experiments have been announced over the years, with some questioning whether we should be playing around with things like AI. For example, it was announced not too long ago that Facebook was using chatbots. The reason this made the news was because the AI chatbots did something unexpected. Although the bots were given specific scripts to use, they seemingly began communicating with one another in their own language. Humans were unable to understand communication between the chatbots, or grasp how it was developed with no human input. This information is kinda scary but yet impressive, as it speaks to where we stand with artificial intelligence, and what it's capable of. Again though, this caused some to question whether we're out of our depths when it comes to AI, and whether we should be experimenting with it. In 2018, Harvard scientists hooked a monkey's brain up to a neural network. At first, people questioned why they'd want to do this, but the researchers said they did it to try and simulate individual neurons. The neurons in question are responsible for recognizing different patterns and faces, and the scientists attempted to activate those particular neurons by showing the monkeys images created by this deep learning artificial intelligence. One of the monkeys they tried this on was Ringo, and the Harvard scientists said that different photographs were shown to the monkeys, and these were created by an artificial intelligence algorithm called Xstream. Before people get worried though, Ringo wasn't tied up or in any pain when this experiment was taking place. In fact, the scientists said he was very comfortable throughout the whole thing, and actually sat in the Harvard lab sipping an orange juice. While the monkey was happy enjoying his juice, the researchers flickered images in front of his eyes. The AI system quickly learned to generate images which would trigger individual brain cells. Incredibly, this was done without activating any of their neighbours. The AI system did do this until it got a response from the neurons, and what's incredible though is that the artificial intelligence was able to trigger the neurons in the monkey's brain to create images that resembled faces. The whole idea behind this was to see if this technology could allow us to ask the neurons what they wanted to see. This is uncharted territory and further tests will need to be carried out. Interestingly, this isn't the only test that's linking artificial intelligence and brains. Elon Musk has detailed more about his Neuralink. It's his recent vision that involves AI brain chips. The company was first set up back in 2018, and as stated on their website, they plan on developing ultra-high bandwidth brain-machine interfaces to connect humans and computers. Elon has even gone as far as saying that this technology could even treat brain injury and trauma. While on the Joe Rogan Podcast, he went into more detail about the company and what they plan on doing. Elon said the following: "There's still a lot of work to do, but I think we're looking at within a year. I think we have a chance of putting input in one end, having them be healthy and restoring some functionality that they've lost." This isn't science fiction either. The company has brought on various high-profile neuroscientists from top universities. By mid-2019, the company has over $158 million in backing. Some have found it interesting that Elon has gone down this path. After all, he's been very vocal about the dangers of AI, and even suggested that in time artificial intelligence could take over. He warned people about superintelligence, a form of artificial intelligence that's way smarter than us humans. He stated that this AI could create an immortal dictator. His worry is that the development of superintelligence could end up in the form of AI that governs the whole world. Elon said the following: "There are many outcomes, but one of the least scary ones is if we had a company or small group of people that manages this superintelligence. This type of technology could take over the world." He went on to say the following: "At least when there's an evil dictator, that human is going to pass away, but for an AI there would be no death. It would live forever and then you have an immortal dictator from which we can never escape. That sounds worrying, and rightly so. Elon isn't trying to scare people, but is trying to make them understand what implications artificial intelligence could have on the world. Currently, we use AI for everything, and he says it won't be long before it's controlling us completely. Early AI work has allowed us to be where we are today, and it seems that we're not slowing down. Elon has also stated that he thinks the human race will be overtaken by artificial intelligence by 2030 or 2040. That doesn't seem too bad, but in reality it only gives us 10 years. This study has said that machines could outperform humans in all tasks within 45 years. The stats were gathered from a survey of more than 350 artificial intelligence researchers. However, the study says that within 7 years computers will be better at translating languages, and by 2026 they could be writing our school essays. Another worry is the manipulation of information. Algorithms could be used to affect certain information. Because AI is good at repeating, it could report negative news on certain businesses or individuals. The future of artificial intelligence is uncertain, but researchers have said that people should get used to the idea of robots and AI, and it seems they will be very much a part of our future. Every year researchers and scientists are making breakthroughs that hopefully will allow humans and machines to live side by side. There are those that have warned us about testing with AI though, and that it easily has the capabilities to outsmart humans, demonstrated when the two AIs created its own language to get past humans. It's examples like this that have made some people worried, but researchers have said that as of right now, the majority of testing is under control. Only time will tell whether we made the right decision to continue experimenting. Skywatching is something that many people do. For some it's calming, and for others is a way to escape everyday life. Watching the sky at night can help to reduce stress, and sometimes you'll even see something interesting. For example, a meteorite flying past. However, there are those that have seen mysterious things, and this has caused some to spend countless hours skywatching in the hopes of capturing something interesting. It seems though that most people are actually unsuccessful in seeing something strange, and as fate would have it, the majority of people who do see mysterious things are usually just going about their everyday life, and isn't expecting to see anything strange. This was the case for one truck driver who spotted something mysterious in the sky. The driver described seeing a mysterious object in the sky while walking back to his truck. They were able to record the object for a minute before they said it vanished. Interestingly, when shared online it caused various people to put forward different theories for what it could be, with some saying that it may have been an unidentified flying object, a drone, or even a portal that opened up. Square-shaped UFOs are not uncommon, and various people have recorded these objects in various countries. UFOs doesn't mean aliens, it's just an object that can't be identified at that moment in time. Although the footage is a little blurry, the driver said they tried the best they could to record it, and that it didn't help that the weather conditions were super windy. Regardless, they managed to record the object. The driver said the following: "I'm a truck driver, and while walking back to my truck I saw this object. I went to find a high viewpoint and it was gone." After being posted to online UFO groups, some suggested that it may have been a plastic bag or a piece of garbage. However, others were not open to this idea because the object in question does not flap around. Rather, it just looks to be flying at a moderate speed. Take a look at the footage. UFO sightings are nothing new. For years, these mysterious crafts have been reported from various regions across our planet, with some ancient scriptures proving that they've been around since the time of the aeroplane. It's this and the thousands of sightings that are reported every year that make people believe that perhaps we're not being told the truth about these crafts. After all, if you have a craft that's able to travel vast distances in a matter of seconds, this could be considered dangerous if it got into the wrong hands. It's for this reason and various others that people say we're kept in the dark, or at least we were. Interestingly, the government seems to be more open to discussing unidentified flying objects, and this has caused some to think that perhaps an announcement is on the way. After all, the government hasn't exactly been open to the idea of extraterrestrial life, even going as far as mocking it and those who believe in it. Different shaped crafts have been reported, with some being more common than others. The most common shaped UFOs reported are those of the disc, triangle, orb, cigar and boomerang. Interestingly, recent reports that came from Eric W. Davis, who works at the United States Department of Defense, states that the United States government is in possession of recovered off-road vehicles. Although skeptics have been quick to claim that Eric W. Davis is nothing more than a fraud making outrageous claims, key figures have also come forward to address the claims, including the former director of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, Louis Elizondo. Additionally, in regards to the program and its ties to the passing of the Intelligence Authorization Act, former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid commented that he'd been involved in the effort and hopes that the UFO investigation program will seek further evidence of other potential recoveries of extraterrestrial crafts. Even the acting chairman of the Senate Select Committee of Intelligence, Marco Rubio, provided an official statement saying the following: "Maybe there is a completely sort of boring explanation for it, but we need to find out," expressing concern that the increased reports of unidentified crafts over American military bases is definitely seen as a threat to the national security of the United States. Although Marco Rubio believes the sightings could be attributed to a possible technological leap made by China or Russia, Eric Davis and Louis Elizondo are far more certain of the crafts originating from an off-world source. Across several interviews for mass media outlets, Louis Elizondo claimed that not only do these crafts exhibit behaviours that appear to defy the very laws of aviation, but that these crafts were found to be 100% not man-made, and were out of the scope of human capabilities. His reasoning for this claim was that the crafts investigated demonstrated hypersonic capabilities that were described as being far beyond the scope that's physically tolerable by a human being, of whom would experience a high amount of G's to the point that it would either be fatal or seriously wound them. This meant that whoever or whatever was piloting these aircrafts appeared to be non-human. Not only this, but the technical developments of the crafts also made it very apparent that the creation of these unidentified flying objects were vastly superior to anything man-made. Louis Elizondo describes in one of his many reports regarding the subject matter as saying the following: "There is a lot we really don't know. We have identified anomalous aircrafts, craft that does not have any obvious flight surfaces, forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond the healthy G-forces of anything biological, low observability and positive lift. These aircraft, will call them aircraft, display capabilities not in the US arsenal, or any other militaries." This finding urges the Department of Defense to treat the existence of these crafts not as random sightings and made-up accounts, but rather as genuine worries and threats that must be actively defended against, and analyse in attempts to reverse engineer the mechanisms behind the craft, and to devise ways to deactivate them, and prepare for an eventual confrontation with these unidentified crafts. The paranormal is a subject that interests many people. Many of us are interested in the unknown, with some even having experienced it themselves. It's these experiences that's led some to investigate the subject, causing them to find a variety of answers for what happened to them. There are those that believe that we share the planet with paranormal entities, and every so often they make themselves known. Science, however, tells us that ghosts don't exist, and it's actually our brains playing tricks on us. They go on to detail that many things can happen to the brain that causes us to see ghosts, and some of these examples can be attributed to us being tired, our brain identifying objects in the dark, or our senses being heightened after watching a horror movie, and therefore we are more alert about what's going on around us. Paranormal researchers and those that have seen ghosts don't buy into this though, and say that the topic should be taken seriously and investigated. Other theories have been put forward to try and explain what we're seeing. For example, some note that humans' visual spectrum isn't great, and that we can only see a certain amount of things, while certain animals have a much wider spectrum. Snakes, for example, are able to see in infrared vision. Some suggest that ghosts are beings that exist in a spectrum not picked up by the human eye, and this is why sometimes motion detectors pick up on paranormal beings. Researchers have also said that a variety of different places can be haunted, with some of the most common places being that of graveyards, old buildings and houses where something bad has happened. However, one place you wouldn't expect to be haunted is that of ships and even the ocean. A man was working on an old boat when he took a mysterious photograph. Upon reviewing it, he discovered he'd accidentally captured something in the background. The image first started to make the rounds online back in August of 2014, with the eyewitness saying the following about the image. As I said in a previous post, I work at sea. Last month we came into a dry dock to carry out refit and repairs. Dry dock is when a ship is brought into a lock, the gates closed and all the water pumped out, leaving the ships high and dry on the blocks, thus allowing repairs and inspections on the underside of the hull. Next to us was an old military frigate being broken down for scrap. She had arrived around 2 weeks prior to us. Once the frigate was on the blocks and all dry, all the crew left the old girl to her fate. A sad sight, but that's how these things go. Once all the sensitive stuff had been removed, the dock workers were free to go on. The dock foreman John went on board first with a camera to take pictures of work areas. All in all, he took a couple hundred. This was one of them. He later sent all of the photographs to his boss, who, upon seeing this one, called John straight away asking the following: "Who is the guy with the axe, the edge of the camera flash?" At the time, John was confused as he never saw anyone while on the ship. The area where this photograph was taken was in a cross alley deep inside the ship. He was walking around with a torch and a camera, and when he'd go to take a photograph he would turn off the torch, leaving him in total darkness. After this he would turn the torch back on and be on his way. Because of it being a military ship, the police were soon contacted. The police turned up and carried out their own investigation. However, they noted that they didn't find any trace of anyone being on the ship. It's also interesting to note that there was only one way on and off the ship, and this was by a gangway covered by CCTV. It was very unlikely that someone would jump off the side of the ship, as it was a 25-meter drop. You couldn't jump over without being seriously injured. No one was seen to leave the ship after John had taken this. If you zoom in on the image, you can make out what appears to be a person. The witness went on to say the following: "I am a skeptic. Maybe it's a trick of the flash reflecting off something, but if you really zoom in you can make out the face, ear, collar of the jacket and the axe. And before anyone asks, I'm not going to name the ship or where she is, as I'm not sure if I'm even supposed to have a picture of the innards of a military ship. This gave me serious goosebumps. Needless to say, I didn't go back on board for a look." Some people gave their opinion on what they thought the being could be. This caused some to suggest that something dark took place in the region, and now that event has left an imprint that gets played over and over. Other examples of a residual haunting include that of something making banging noises, or turning on the same light over and over. Although this may sound creepy, residual haunting is actually one of the better hauntings to experience. According to paranormal researchers, these entities will let you know that they're there, but they'll usually stay out of your way. There's also a dark entity that's allegedly been plaguing the human race since recorded history, and this entity goes by many different names. For many years, a number of people all around the world have reported waking up at night and seeing a mysterious shadowy figure, and some suggested that the being in this photograph is a shadow figure. The shadowy figure has over time become famous, leading on to it to be given a variety of different names, some of which include the Shadow Man, the Hat Man, and the Shadow Person. The phenomenon has gained widespread popularity, and a number of documentaries have been made on the subject, trying to get to the bottom of what people are experiencing. However, it seems that the more the subject is looked into, the more questions are put forward. A dedicated blog known as the Hat Man Project has also been launched where people share their experiences with the Hat Man. The history of the Hat Man phenomenon goes way back in time, and different written records of the Hat Man have been found. In fact, some evidence of the Hat Man-like entity have been found in scriptures of previous civilizations as well, showcasing that whatever this thing is, it's been plaguing humanity for a long time. For many fans, Terminator 2 Judgment Day is a strong sequel. Due to the rest of the franchise, it stands out as being one of the best Terminator films. Interestingly, a few days ago it was announced that scientists at the Army and Texas A&M University have developed a new type of material that has the ability to automatically heal. This immediately reminded many of the T-1000 from Terminator 2. This new technology is noted as being the first of its kind. The scientists have said the materials will likely be used in future military platforms. Frank Gardia, who's an aerospace engineer, is known for his work in the US Army's combat capabilities. Army officials have said they're trying to look to the future, and that there's a possibility this new technology could be used for air and ground missions. Frank Gardia said the following about the materials. "We want a system of materials to simultaneously provide structure, sensing and response. Most cross-linked materials, especially those that are 3D printed, tend to have a fixed form, meaning that once you manufacture your parts, the materials cannot be reprocessed or melted. This new material is noted as being able to go from a solid to a liquid several times, and that due to its memory behavior, a certain shape can be programmed into it, allowing it to transform back into its preferred shape. As of right now, the researchers have said it's still in its early stages, but the testing has shown this could soon become a reality, and could be implemented into the military's arsenal. Interestingly, it's also been announced by the military that they're working on technology to create phantom aircrafts. The US Navy has patented technology to create these images, and it's thought they will be created with infrared technology. One of the issues that the military has faced is being able to protect military aircrafts from enemy missiles. Various ideas have been put forward in the past, and although some have helped, none have been able to stop these attacks. The system has been described as the following. There can be multiple laser systems mounted on the back of air vehicles, with each laser system generating a ghost image, so that it gives off the idea there would be multiple aircrafts present. Interestingly, this has caused some to suggest that the US has already been using this tech, and that this could be behind some of the UFO sightings that have been reported in recent years. It's also been announced that the US Army is going forward with plans to create an extremely powerful laser weapon. The indirect fire protection capability high energy is said to be a 300 upward kilowatt weapon. It's interesting to note that at this moment in time the United States Navy is currently using this tech. However, the laser weapon they use is nowhere near as powerful as this one that's in development. In fact, it's reported that this new laser weapon will be over 10 times more powerful than the one the United States Navy uses. Is there life outside of our planet? is a question that's been asked countless times. Space agencies like NASA have done a great job at discovering new planets, and some of these have a similar layout to Earth, meaning that there's a possibility that it could hold complex life. It's these discoveries that have caused us to explore certain regions more. Interestingly though, we don't have to travel far to find possible life, as scientists and researchers have said that other complex life forms could actually be within our very own solar system. One place that's of particular interest is that of Jupiter's moon Europa. Due to this moon being of high interest, space agencies have said they want to send rovers to this moon, and this is for the sole purpose of finding out if there's life in its vast oceans. Known as the Europa Lander mission, NASA scientists theorize that the most likely candidate for life to be found in our solar system is expected to be within the icy surface of Europa, due to the expectation of the moon holding vast amounts of water beneath the frozen surface. Data surrounding Europa states that the moon holds a vast salty ocean of water, similar to our oceans on Earth. This giant ocean is said to span the moon's entire globe. Additionally, due to the frozen surface, scientists expect the conditions of the water to be favourable, as the ice surface acts as a natural atmosphere barrier against radiation, similar to our electromagnetic field, giving life desirable conditions to flourish without its deep oceans. NASA plans on sending a Europa rover to the moon in an attempt to penetrate its surface, and collect samples more than 4 inches deep, to better understand the complex chemistry of materials from the ocean below. Efforts are already being made by NASA engineers to design a rover similar to the Martian rovers, and these will carry miniature laboratories within the lander to analyse samples, but with the addition of an onboard chemical analysis lab, and this would be able to hold microscopic cameras for the analysation of bacterial microbial life. Although the project is still in its conceptual stages, it holds high promise in the search for extraterrestrial life, and seems to be of growing priority in the coming years. Interestingly, this isn't just fantasy either. A British scientist has come forward and said that it's almost a certainty that Jupiter's moon Europa is home to alien life, but they noted that these creatures could look similar to the octopus that we have on planet Earth. The researcher behind the comments is that of Monica Grady, who's currently at the Liverpool Hope University. As mentioned, this vast ocean that can be found underneath Europa is a prime candidate for otherworldly life. It's not just Europa that they suspect life could be teeming. They went on to express how they think that deep caverns and caves on Mars could also be hiding complex life. Monica Grady said the following about the possibility of there being life on Europa. When it comes to the prospects of life beyond Earth, it's almost a racing certainty that there's life beneath the ice on Europa. Elsewhere, if there's going to be life on Mars, it's going to be underneath the surface of the planet. There you're protected from solar radiation, and that means that there's a possibility of ice remaining in the pores of the rocks, which could act as a source of water. If there's something on Mars, it's likely to be very small, something like bacteria, but I think we've got a better chance of having slightly higher forms of life on Europa, perhaps similar to the intelligence of an octopus. Many have praised the scientists for making these kinds of comments. After all, when it comes to scientists and otherworldly life, we don't usually get an open response such as this one. They usually shy away and say there's a very low chance of there being life on other planets. So many noted that it's a nice change to hear a scientist be open to the idea of there being life on moons such as Europa. The octopus is one of the most recognisable creatures, but it's a creature that's shrouded in mystery. Over the years, many different researchers have expressed their interest in these creatures, and have said that their makeup is fascinating. Recently, scientists have discovered that octopus, squid and any other cephalopod evolved completely different from nearly every other organism on the planet. Scientists have always known these creatures were a bit different, but a recent study has shown that some species are able to edit their RNA sequences on demand to adapt to their environment. This has baffled some researchers. When an organism changes, it starts with a genetic mutation. This can be due to change in the DNA of said animal. These changes are then put into place by RNA. Going back to the study, it was discovered that a squid had edited over 60% of RNA in its nervous system. This meant this creature was able to adapt to wherever it was at any given time. It's like us being able to adapt to living in the desert and then the Antarctic in a matter of seconds. This study also showed researchers that octopus and cuttlefish can do the same thing. This isn't the only interesting discovery to come from our oceans. Another creature of interest and one that could change our understanding is that of the scarlet jellyfish. The scarlet jellyfish is an incredible species that's able to restart their life. When these creatures have sustained damage, they will start to make their way to the bottom of the ocean. Once here, they'll start the process of turning back into a juvenile form of a jellyfish. After this, they'll spend around 3 months growing back into an adult. After this, they'll carry on their life until they get injured again. Incredibly, researchers have witnessed one jellyfish performing this cycle 12 times. Due to the immortal jellyfish's capability of biological immortality, pharmaceutical research has taken an interest in this creature. It could potentially mean that sometime in the future we'll be able to harness this ability. It's due to these otherworldly abilities that some have put forward the idea that octopus and jellyfish didn't originate from this planet, and that they were somehow transported here. One idea is that their eggs could have travelled vast distances and arrived on our planet from an asteroid. Although this may sound far-fetched, the shield shrimp eggs are able to last for many years. They lay eggs, and if the conditions aren't right, they'll stay unhatched for up to 7 years. When there's a right amount of water, the thousands of eggs will come to life. As of right now, the Europa lander is still in its early stages, with NASA working hard in order to get this mission sent to the icy moon. The idea is that if everything goes to plan, the mission should be launched around 2025. NASA said the following on their website: "The moon is thought to contain a global ocean of salty water beneath its frozen crust, and if life exists in that ocean, signs of its existence, called biosignatures, could potentially find their way to the surface, where a spacecraft could sample and study them." Every day people are able to capture incredible things. Cameras and smartphones have become a necessity for people all over the world. It allows us to connect with friends and loved ones instantly, and due to how advanced modern phones are, it also allows us to take instant videos. This has meant that various people have captured strange things in the background of their videos, and even after further analysis they are left wondering what it was. This seems to have been the case for one man in Tennessee. The video was just posted to Facebook, and shows what appears to be a strange object in the background of a video. The uploader states they're looking for answers for what this strange object is. The video starts with a hummingbird as a bird feeder. While the video is rolling though, we can see what appears to be an unidentified flying object in the background, and one thing that stands out is how fast this object seems to be travelling. Now, although this may look like an aeroplane or something natural like a bird, this definitely isn't the case. Hummingbirds are known as graceful creatures, but they are perhaps best known for being able to flap their wings incredibly fast. In fact, researchers have said that hummingbirds can beat their wings 10 to 15 times per second. Other hummingbirds have been recorded beating their wings at a faster rate, but for argument's sake we'll go with the 10 to 15 second rate. When comparing this to the video, we can see that the hummingbird beats its wings around 6 times, meaning that whatever this object was easily covered this section of the sky in less than a second. The original owner said though they struggled to get the real-time version, but did note that during the time of the recording they didn't notice anything strange, and that this video was taken purely to capture the hummingbird close to the feeder. The original uploader posted the following comment: "I have an interesting video I'd like to share that was captured by my uncle in East Tennessee, around 55 miles from Oak Ridge. The video was taken via cell phone between 6 and 7 AM on Sunday, and this was on August 9th. My uncle has been taking pics and videos of the hummingbirds that have been feeding at his house for a while. This particular video my aunt wanted to add some music and post about the hummingbird, but wanted to see what it would look like in slow motion. At the time of taking said video, they showed nothing and only heard the sounds of nature. However, upon slowing down the video, they caught something that is very interesting. Now consider how fast a hummingbird flaps its wings. Whatever flies in below the bird in the horizon is going crazy fast. It doesn't seem to be a bug. I'm trying to get the original video that's up to speed. This video starts at normal speed then goes into slow motion. I would love to have this analysed. Thanks for looking." Some have suggested that the video shows a helicopter, but as others pointed out, there's no way a helicopter will be able to cover that amount of distance in such a short amount of time. Others went down the route of suggesting that this was an unidentified flying object. Here's the footage. Here's an uncropped version. The video was only posted today and people are still trying to figure out what this object is. Interestingly, the uploader went on to say the following: "My uncle who shot this video is a helicopter pilot, who flew for law enforcement as well as on oil rigs in various locations. He had plenty of friends who flew helicopters in the military, and says it's not like any helicopter he's seen." Nikola Tesla was easily one of the greatest minds that ever lived, and it's said that had people been more open to his theories and ideas, our world would be a completely different place. At the time, his unique mind wasn't appreciated. It's only been in the years following his death that people respected what he was trying to achieve. Nikola Tesla wasn't one to shy away from electricity and being able to harness it. He also looked at things like anti-gravity technology and something that became known as the ether. One of his famous quotes was the following: "I've worked out a dynamic theory on gravity in all details, and hope to give this to the world very soon." As mentioned, as with many of the great minds of the past, there's a lot of people today that don't understand the impact they had on modern life. For example, electricity, radar, microwaves, the radio, drones and many other things all came from the great mind that was Nikola Tesla. He is the definition of a man that was born in the wrong era. To show how ahead he was, when he was demonstrating a remote-controlled boat at an exhibition at Madison Square Garden, everyone couldn't believe what they were seeing, and branded Tesla as some sort of magician, demanding that the boat be torn open and prove that he hadn't shrunk people inside. It must have been frustrating for Tesla to have been trying to put forward his ideas in a time like this, where instead of being appreciated, people just wrote off your work as being fantasy and magic. Tesla began believing in an old alchemical mysticism known as the ether. He would talk about it for length and believe that he could tap into it, and use its abilities to create a future in which magical devices could exist, and change the landscape and powers of humanity overall. This led to a popular quote that many people reference today, in which Nikola Tesla states the following: "When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain, which in fact it is, all things being particles of a real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with each other instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we're face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles, and the instruments through which we shall be able to do this will fit inside a vest pocket." Nikola Tesla is also known for a sad letter he sent to his mother. In the letter he says the following: "My dear mother, I feel sad and dreary when I think of you. I don't know how, but I feel that you are not well. I wish I could be beside you now, mother, to bring you a glass of water. All these years that I spent in the service of mankind brought me nothing but insults and humiliation. This morning I woke up early just before dawn, because I'd heard something that I'd been hearing through my dreams for quite some time now. I heard this voice that sang some beautiful chant, lament, or even prayer in Moorish. When I came to my senses, I realized that this voice came from everywhere, and it was impossible to determine whether it was coming from within. I'm afraid of losing my mind. I cannot confide this to Dr. Lionel because I don't trust him anymore. I heard that he visited Mr. Edison 2 weeks ago. Again, my thoughts are of you, mother, and again I feel the same restlessness and sorrow. I will write to the patent office to speed up the realization of my public experiment for 1 week. I have to go back home to my homeland, to you. I know now for sure that you're not well because once again I've heard that lamenting voice, but this time I was wide awake. I still haven't lost my sense. I didn't write to the patent office. Once their agents came and I told him about my intentions in person, he said he was sorry, but the dates could not be changed because all the congressmen have already determined them. I went down to the waterfalls and told the boys to prepare the turbines, and wait for my call tomorrow. I've decided to provide the mankind with the gift it deserves, and return to Europe to you, my mother. Governments here are the same as the ones back home. I have realized now that at the end the mankind depends on governments, and the individual cannot change the world on himself, but that strange voice still bothers me. I know it's connected to you. My experiment was something transcendental. Dear mother, I leave for Yugoslavia tomorrow. Miss Nora went to the port and brought me a ticket for Lisbon. From there I will go by train to Zurich and then straight home. It will take me approximately 10 days, no more than 2 weeks to get home. Today I have entered the Congressional Office building, and at the middle of their congressional session I asked for a couple of minutes of their time. They weren't very happy about it, but they let me. I asked for the telephone to call the laboratory at Niagara Falls. The boys over there activated the turbines and the Congress Hall was lit up with my power, 10 times stronger than the regular one as I promised it would. I didn't care about their reactions at all. I instantly left the hall, because I didn't do this for them but for mankind. In that very moment when I was looking at the lightning bulb to shine with my wireless electricity, I realized that I wasn't the maker of all of this. I felt that someone or something was carrying it from Niagara Falls to the Congress Hall, and that the law I thought I invented actually always existed. I was just the vessel blessed with inspiration to formulate and explain it to mankind. Instead of triumph and happiness, some empty sorrow emerged. I realized that I had been missing something big in my life, as if I'd left something unrecognized completely. Some formula was within the grasp of my understanding, and I have failed or didn't want to clarify it. That has to be connected to the Moorish lament. I am sure of it now. This letter will never get to you, mother. I don't know why I write it to you when you cannot read it. Rest in peace, Mother, and please forgive me for choosing paths that led me away from you. I cannot even be there for your funeral. I read the telegram that informed me of your death, and despise people who weren't ready to understand 2 years ago that electricity can be transformed without wires. Now they've seen it, but they won't use it for centuries to come, because someone burned down my downtown laboratory to the ground, with all my formulas and writings in it. They suspect of Mr. Edison. I became so indifferent I cannot even recognize myself. I would maybe feel sad before, but not anymore, because I am now sure that someone is keeping my patterns under control, that my discovery isn't mine at all, and finally that mankind was not ready for it. I know that someone is overseeing everything and has a plan of their own, which is probably why I'm so indifferent. I will lay this letter on your grave when I arrive at our village's graveyard. I believe in something that I never believed at. I believe that I'm still a part of you, and that my life is not over for good. I now feel sorry for avoiding Turks, because they sang laments I heard before dawns. I now realize that they knew more about this thing a lot more than I did. All those years spent in science were in vain. Please, Mother, forgive me. Forgive me for taking these paths. This is the last letter that Nikola Tesla sent to his mother, a sad reminder of what he was facing during this time. Tesla also said the following during an interview. I wanted to illuminate the whole Earth. There is enough electricity to become a second sun. Light would appear around the equator, as a ring around Saturn. Mankind is not ready for the great and good. In Colorado Springs, I soak to the earth by electricity. Also, we can water the other energies, such as positive and mental energy. They are the music of great composers, or the verses of great poets. In the earth's interior there are energy of joy, peace and love. Their expressions are a flower that grows from the earth, the food we get out of her and everything that makes man's homeland. I've spent years looking for the way that this energy could influence people. The beauty and the scent of roses can be used as a medicine, and the sun's rays as a food. Life has an infinite number of forms, and the duty of scientists is to find them in every form of matter. 3 things are essential in this. All that I do is search for them. I know I will not find them, but I will never give up on them. Going back in September, researchers at the Large Hadron Collider made a big announcement. They said that the Large Hadron Collider had found proof of high-energy particles, and that matter had been produced from light. Simone Pagan-Griso, a researcher at the US Department of Energy's Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, said the following. If you go back and look at Maxwell's equations for classical electromagnetism, you'll see that 2 colliding waves sum up to a bigger wave. We only see these 2 phenomena recently observed by Atlas, when we put together Maxwell's equations with special relativity, and quantum mechanics and the so-called theory of quantum electrodynamics." End quote. Alessandro Triccoli, a researcher at Brooklyn Haven National Laboratory, had this to say. If you read the equation of E equals mc squared from right to left, you'll see that a small amount of mass produces a huge amount of energy because of the c squared constant, which is the speed of light squared. But if you look at the formula the other way around, you'll see that you need to start with a huge amount of energy to produce even a tiny amount of mass. One of the issues when these types of discoveries are made is that many of us don't understand it. These scientists and researchers are experimenting with things that the majority of us don't understand, and it can be worrying when they're conducting these types of experiments, because sometimes they're going into uncharted territory. For those unaware, the Large Hadron Collider was built by the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, also known as CERN. It's the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. It started up on the 10th of September 2008, and remains the latest addition to CERN's accelerator complex. The Large Hadron Collider consists of a 27-kilometer ring of superconducting magnets, with a number of accelerating structures to boost the energy of the particles along the way. CERN, the European Physics Research Centre, recently upgraded the Large Hadron Collider. The upgrade comes 6 years after the collider managed to provide scientists with answers to a riddle when it confirmed the Higgs boson exists. Scientists claim the upgrade would help in boosting luminosity of proton smashing experiments at the Large Hadron Collider, which can be found 17 miles underneath the border of Switzerland and France. It should help to boost the amount of particle collision tenfold, which would give them a much clearer picture of the subatomic world. It's just been announced though that a new super collider has been approved by CERN, and what's interesting is that it means the current one now looks tiny. The new collider will have a circumference of over 62 miles, meaning it will be 4 times bigger and much more powerful than the current one. However, this isn't going to be cheap, with researchers estimating it's going to cost around $23 billion. CERN said the following about the news. Such a machine would produce copious amounts of Higgs bosons in a very clean environment. It would make dramatic progress in mapping the diverse interactions of the Higgs boson with other particles, and allow measurements of extremely high precision. They continued with the following on their website. The Future Circular Collider study is developing designs for a high-performance collider to extend the research currently being conducted at the Large Hadron Collider, once the latter reaches the end of its lifespan. The goal of the FCC is to greatly push the energy and intensity frontiers of particle colliders, with the aim of reaching collision energies of 100 TeVs, or tera-electron volts. This is in the search for new physics. The FCC study hosted by CERN is an international collaboration of more than 150 universities, research institutes and industrial partners from all around the world. The study will elaborate on different possibilities for circular colliders, new detector facilities, the associated infrastructure cost estimates, global implementation scenarios, as well as appropriate international governance structures. The FCC examines scenarios for 3 different types of particle collisions: hadron, proton-proton and heavy ion, collisions like in the Large Hadron Collider, electron-positron collisions, as in the former LEP, and proton-electron collisions. One question that many people have asked is, where is this money coming from? Officials said they will be getting backing from EU members of states, but if it comes to it they may have to reach out to countries like China. For years now there's been worries that this machine might create something devastating. Various media outlets suggested this machine could be capable of creating a black hole, with CERN themselves admitting that although this is unlikely, it could happen. CERN have even said it would be great for science if this happened, as it would give them a chance to study possible extra dimensions. This discovery comes not long after researchers said they want to open a portal to another dimension. The researchers have said they're coming to the end of building a large piece of equipment that will help them test this, saying that they're looking forward to using this piece of equipment. One of the researchers on board have said they hope to discover something they call a hidden shadow world. They have described this as a concealed mirror world. However, it's hard for many to understand this as no hard evidence for this exists. Once again, it's caused worry among some, as they don't think we should be messing around with these sorts of things. Some have suggested that what researchers in Tennessee are talking about is actually dark matter. Scientists are quite open about dark matter, and have expressed they don't really know what it is. According to some studies though, dark matter makes up roughly 85% of the matter in the universe. Though this strange form of matter or energy can't be observed, by understanding the movements of stars, it was made obvious to researchers that there was a large amount of mass not accounted for within our galactic supercluster. Understanding what it is, why it can't be detected, and all of its strange properties could be the key to understanding big questions about the nature of our universe. Now that scientists have discovered and identified the Higgs boson, they are now trying to unravel another mystery. This comes in the form of particles from the dark world. The researchers are now trying to make measurements and simulations of dark matter. Many incredible painters have made themselves known throughout history, and at first glance their paintings are just beautiful works of art. But it isn't until we take a closer look that some pieces of artwork begin to reveal their secrets. For example, one of the most famous ones is that of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. Possibly one of the most sought after pieces in the art world is that of the masterpiece by Leonardo da Vinci, known as the Mona Lisa. Valued at more than $800 million by today's standards, the piece is often at the center of most discussions regarding the realm of the golden age of the Renaissance, and the dedication the old masters had to any one particular piece of art. Interestingly, as Leonardo da Vinci worked on the masterpiece, he hid several different symbols and codes that took art enthusiasts decades to find. It appears that the old master left several different letters and numbers hidden throughout the painting. When viewing the piece under a microscope, Italian scholars discovered the letters LV hidden in the Mona Lisa's right eye, and the letters CE in the left eye. Additionally, the bridge in the background landscape of the painting bears the inscription 72, and a hidden date that starts with 149, but leaves the last number completely scratched out. Although researchers believe the larger number to represent the year in which the piece was originally started, no one knows what these other numbers and letters hidden throughout the painting could mean. It was after these discoveries that people started to comb through other paintings, in the hopes of finding other undiscovered secrets. It turns out that others do have strange markings and symbols, but one that's interested many people is that of Dutch Renaissance artist Peter Bruegel. The painting in question shows a battle, but it's what's in the background that's caught people's attention. Those who look closely have claimed they can see people riding dinosaurs, and that whatever these creatures are, they don't resemble modern day animals. Some have noted how the dinosaur-looking creatures look out of place, and have noted that only 3 of them can be seen in the painting. One of the reasons these creatures have only been spotted recently is because they are towards the back of the painting, and you can only really see them when you're up close. It's important to note that during the 16th century there were no dinosaurs, with scientists saying that dinosaurs were wiped out around 65 million years ago by a massive event, most likely a giant asteroid that made contact with our planet and set off a chain of events. This then caused some to suggest that the creatures in the painting are horses, but this doesn't add up as horses can be seen in the painting, and there's obvious differences between the two. Others put forward the idea these creatures are actually camels, with one person saying the following: although these creatures do look interesting, what we're most likely seeing here is camels. Camel cavalry is the term used when forces use camels in battle. These are definitely not dinosaurs, even though I can see why people would think this. Also, the size of the creatures matches that of a camel." End quote. Many people that believe these creatures are dinosaurs are those of young Earth creationists. This is a religious belief that the Earth and all life on it was created in a lateral 6-day span, and that all life found cannot date back more than 6,000 years. Their basic idea was that the bones of dinosaurs that were found were those that died during the flood. Because this wasn't long ago, they state that a few rare dinosaurs, including flying avian ancient species, could have survived in the modern era. In regards to Noah's Ark, creation museums say that dinosaurs were also housed on the Ark, and they were protected by God. However, surprisingly, there are some skeptics. Historians say that dinosaurs didn't die 6,000 years ago, and the idea of there being a great flood is debatable. Scientists do believe that at one point in time water levels did rise, and they say this happened because the remains of various ancient civilizations have been found underwater. They state that the idea of there being a massive flood that submerged mountains didn't happen, stating that there simply isn't enough water on this planet to do something like that. Believers in this theory state that a great flood did happen, and that there's even evidence that human and dinosaurs coexisted. One of the locations that allegedly proves this idea is that of the Paluxy River. This can be found near Glen Rose, Texas. It was during the 1930s that this discovery came to light, and which caused many at the time to question whether humans and dinosaurs lived during the same time. If this turned out to be true, such a finding would dramatically contradict the conventional geologic timetable, which holds that humans did not appear on Earth until over 60 million years after the dinosaurs became extinct. However, the human and dinosaur tracks have been debunked by scientists, as they claim that what people are seeing is actually dinosaur tracks. The supposed tracks do at first glance look like that of a human's. However, scientists have said the most likely answer is that these are metatarsal dinosaur tracks, or even carvings. These creations are made by bipedal dinosaurs, and we get these impressions when these dinosaurs press their heels and soles into the mud. Mud flow would then fill in some of the surrounding area, causing it to look similar to that of a human footprint. They say these types of footprints can be found in other formations where tracks are found. Regardless, scientists haven't won over everyone, as there's still some that state that what we're seeing is in fact a human footprint, and the idea of it being dinosaurs was put forward to keep people quiet. These people aren't alone though, as many reports from different countries have stated they have proof of dinosaurs, and some of these come in the form of eyewitness accounts, and even carvings found in old temples. Although similar answers are given for these discoveries, others believe that certain places on our planet still holds proof that humans once walked the planet with dinosaurs. Various stories are still being told of people encountering prehistoric-looking creatures, with even early explorers backing up these claims. It seems that all the time these types of discoveries are being made, people are still going to believe in this idea. The topic of UFOs is an interesting one. There's millions of people that have claimed to have seen an unidentified flying object, and for many it's changed their view on the subject, leading them to be more open about the idea of what may be lurking outside of our solar system. There's then the other group of people that say that UFOs are not real, and can be explained using everyday objects. For example, they say that what people are seeing is actually natural phenomena: birds, planes, military crafts, camera anomalies, and so on. There's another group of people though that have struggled to come forward with their encounters, and this is because they take it a step further. Not only do they claim to have seen a UFO, but they say they were actually taken on board the craft by the occupants. Alien abductions have been reported for years, with each individual coming forward with similar encounters. The majority of the cases involve otherworldly looking beings taking humans into a futuristic looking craft, and once inside they're experimented on. Although this sounds like a frightening encounter, the majority of people actually say this is somewhat of a nice experience, and that the memories they do have of the event are usually good. Hynek scale is used to explain different types of interactions with UFOs. For example, a close encounter of the first kind is described as seeing an unidentified flying object less than 500 feet away. In this case, the individuals are able to give a detailed description of the craft they witnessed, helping investigators to build a case around the encounter. Going back a while ago, one person sent me their encounter with what they said was a genuine alien abduction. In this case, the individual had an encounter of the fifth kind. One of the issues people have with these types of encounters is backing up the event itself. This has caused many individuals to not come forward with their story, and this mostly comes down to not wanting to be ridiculed by their family, friends, and the general public. One individual sent me the following message: "Dear Unexplained Mysteries, I've sent this out to a few people, but hardly anyone knows about my strange experience. I was 20 years old when this happened, and I believe that I was abducted by aliens. I've struggled to talk about this as I know the stigma that comes with the subject. I've only told one friend about this, and my family have no idea. The abduction took place in Wyoming. I was fishing on a lake in the area with one of my friends. After a few hours had passed, we noticed 2 bright lights in the sky. At first we thought they were stars because they started to move quickly but then stopped. They did this for around 20 minutes and we didn't think much of it. Suddenly one of the lights flew towards us and then suddenly stopped. We thought this was a meteor the way it came down, but then it began to pulsate. These lights almost put me into a trance. After this I blacked out. It's important to note that I woke up around 3 hours later and around 1,000 meters from the lake. After travelling back and collecting my things, I called for my friend. I got an answer and they asked whether I'd put something in the drinks we had that night. I explained I was equally confused and had no idea what had happened. After this we met up, had a chat and then went home, both confused about the lost time and why we both blacked out. Fast forward 2 weeks and I start to have these very vivid dreams. It was like I was watching my dreams from outside my body. It's hard to explain, but it was very clear what was happening. It was like I was lucid dreaming inside a dream. During this one dream I was floating above the lake I was fishing at, but something was off. It was the same lake that me and my friend had been fishing at the night we blacked out, and same as before I was able to see the bright lights approach us. But this time I had a different point of view. After watching the bright lights let out a bright flash, me and my friend dropped to the ground. Only a matter of seconds after this happening, a large craft landed close to the lake. It was then that 4 beings lifted my body into the craft and then flew off. My friend was just left on the ground in a paralysed state. After this, the dream jumped to me being inside the craft. It sounds cheesy, but the only way I can describe it is that it looked like a typical dish UFO. It was bright inside and there was some very slight humming noises I could hear. It was nothing like a plane engine. It was just a very quiet slight hum. The 4 beings were tall and had large heads. I couldn't make out their faces as in my dream state they were just blurred. Regardless, I woke up while on the craft and 2 of the beings approached me. They were telepathically talking to me, but what was strange is that I could hear the answer that was being given to me in my dream state. It was like I was somehow connected to the event. I asked why I was there, what they wanted and when I could go home. They were inside my mind and I could hear them as clear as day. They said that I didn't have to worry and that this was just a routine, and that I would be taken back soon. When I asked about what they meant by routine, they just said this is something that has to happen. After this, I asked why they come here, and they responded by saying they are travellers, and that they use the cosmos to spread awareness, but they didn't elaborate. The last question I remember asking was, what's the purpose of existence? To which I got the following answer. The universe you reside in was part of something great, something special. Life and death doesn't exist. You will always live. You are part of something much greater. We are here to observe. There is still time. After this I fade out of the dream and wake up, to which I then remember the next bit because I was conscious and then went on to call my friend. I have no idea what this means, and can understand how the majority of people won't believe what I say. It's not about trying to convince people about what happened. I just want to get my story out there, and perhaps see if anyone else has experienced anything similar, or knew what happened to me. It's an interesting story, but as mentioned in the beginning, it's really tough for abductees to back up what they're saying. Even when physical proof is presented, such as a piece of clothing that happens to have high amounts of radiation on it, is still normally thrown aside. Regardless, eyewitnesses are still reporting that these types of encounters are happening around the world. As of 2018, the Ocean Service has said that over 80% of our ocean is unexplored. Although many have said that space is one of the last unexplored frontiers, the argument could also be made that our oceans make that list. After all, we've done a great job at mapping hard-to-reach regions on our planet, but haven't managed to research certain regions of our oceans. Interestingly, various amateur researchers have come forward over the years with some strange discoveries, some of which they say that proves our oceans are much more mysterious than we make out. This discovery was sent to me a few days back by one of my subscribers, and they said that they think they've discovered a large underwater structure. This was found close to Isla Coronado, which can be found just off the shoreline of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula. One of the first things that stands out about this structure is how big it is. Not only that, but there's nothing around the area that matches the look of this object, and this has caused some to speculate that it could be something mysterious. Sometimes with these discoveries, underwater researchers explain that they're just natural formations, where amateur researchers suggest they look artificial. This giant structure appears to have what looks like pillars going around the entire formation. So what could it be? One idea is that governments across the world have built underwater bases. This idea isn't supported by officials though, as they've said these currently don't exist. But certain countries have hinted that underwater structures do exist. And like some have pointed out, it's not like they're going to just tell you the truth if this was the case. They would likely want to keep something like this a secret from the general public. Due to the trail that can be seen behind the object, it's caused some to suggest that these types of structures are actually moving, and that it could be linked to past civilizations or even things like unidentified flying objects. The idea of there being civilizations that have been lost to the waves is nothing new. Researchers working at London University came forward and said they found a Stone Age civilization beneath the sea. This has caused some to be more open-minded when these types of discoveries are made, saying that there's likely many more ancient civilizations that are waiting to be discovered. People such as UFO researchers though have decided to look outside the box, and have suggested that what we're looking at could possibly be an unidentified flying object. It's important to remember though that the island is approximately 7 kilometers or 4.3 miles long, and this object is easily double that size. So if this is an underwater base or a UFO, it's massive. Other UFO researchers have said that these crafts are interested in our oceans, saying that some of the earliest accounts of UFOs were reported close to our oceans. Military officials have also talked about unidentified submerged objects. These are UFOs that are seen in and around our world's oceans. However, underwater researchers would most likely label this as a natural formation, noting that the area does have a large volcano, so perhaps this formation was created due to this. Other mysterious structures have been discovered that have caused some to question their origins, and one is that of the Fuxian Lake Pyramid. This mystery is located in Fuxian Lake, which can be found in the Yunnan province in China. This discovery was made back in 2006. Many reports were made by divers and water enthusiasts that would boat on the lake, and claim that the appearance of what seems to be underwater buildings could be seen. Enough reports were made, and on the 13th of June a team of archaeological divers decided to search the lake. They discovered the remains of a group of huge ancient buildings at the bottom of the lake. The most noted of them is a vast stone pyramid located in the centre. The archaeologists were stumped on how this massive structure got here completely intact. When they looked back through the historical records, they found evidence of an ancient city that was established in the area that is now Lake Fuxian. However, this doesn't close the case on the mysterious pyramid. The local legends told that the city sank to the bottom of the lake. The historical records that were kept showed that the once capital was made mostly of wood and clay, but the remains that have been found at the bottom of the lake are made entirely of stone. Surveys of the land have revealed that the complex at the bottom of the Fujian Lake covers 10.8 million square feet. This is far larger than the once capital had ever been. So the mystery remains. Why was such a large city left without any remaining trace? What thickens the plot is the archaeological team went on to find carvings resembling a wearable mask. However, the mask had flat cheeks and indented teeth that do not match the facial characteristics of a human. Another stone mask was later found that had zeros and ones carved into a design. Some bricks of stone were also found on the buildings that had engravings that is similar in appearance to the Roman numeral 1 and the English letter Y. The question that then arises with this is not so much the unusual carvings themselves, but the fact that if this underwater pyramid is over 1,800 years old, what tools would have been used to make these carvings, as researchers have said that nothing from that time period would have been able to make something so detailed. In conclusion, mainstream scientists have even admitted themselves that the oceans are mysteries in their own right. A large portion of our oceans still remain unexplored, and it's anyone's guess as to what could be lurking in the depths. So far, scientists have discovered over 242,000 marine species. However, it's been estimated that every year over 2,000 new oceanic species are discovered. With the oceans being so vast and widespread, it's likely that scientists and researchers will be making discoveries well into the future. Scientists have done a great job at answering some of the ocean's mysteries, but it's important to keep an open mind about what could be laying in the depths. Who knows where the next discovery will lead us? Astronauts have perhaps one of the most interesting jobs in the world. They venture where very few have been, and get to observe our planet from the comfort of the International Space Station. Over 560 people have made it into space, and with new discoveries and technology, it's said that within the next few years that number will increase dramatically, with space agencies looking at introducing space tourism within the next few decades. Couple this with agencies' efforts at colonizing planets such as Mars, and it's fair to say that interest in space is at an all-time high. The International Space Station is the most famous spacecraft that orbits our planet. It's a large spacecraft, and over the years various astronauts have called this place home. One of the most common things for astronauts to do is take incredible photographs of our planet. Interestingly though, some of these get more attention than others, and this is because of what can be seen in the background. One photograph taken by German astronaut Alexander Gerst made the rounds on social media back in 2014. The photograph was shared on the astronaut's Twitter profile, where it quickly gained a lot of attention, even going on to be featured in various mainstream media articles, where they suggested that what could be seen in the image was in fact a UFO. One news outlet reported that the image was huge, measured in at around 5 to 7 miles in diameter, noting that whatever this object was, it looked very disc-like, and seemed to have perfect symmetry. Various UFO websites posted about it first, one of which was Scott C. Waring of the UFO Sightings Daily website, and again noting that this object seemed to be the real deal. Even they admitted though that the object in question was not the best quality. They said the UFO could be seen over the ocean, with others making comparisons between UFOs and our oceans, stating that whatever these crafts are, they seem to be fascinated with bodies of water. Other UFO researchers stated the object wasn't actually in the sky, but rather under the ocean. However, this is unlikely as no clouds are above the object. If this photograph shows a UFO, it would make it one of the largest that's ever been captured on camera. As mentioned, estimations put the craft as being over 5 miles in diameter, with some saying that we don't have crafts that big or that shape, so it's definitely not one of ours. Others suggested that a more likely answer is that this is just a camera glitch. Sometimes these large images are put together using a variety of smaller images, so there's a possibility that this is just a gap that wasn't filled. Other online users weren't so impressed with the image, with one user saying the following: "It seems that UFO researchers will label anything remotely strange as an unidentified flying object. The theories that are put forward are very out there. What's the most likely explanation? That this is a camera glitch, or that aliens have travelled millions of miles in high-tech crafts, just to accidentally get captured in an astronaut's photograph? I think I know which one sounds the most plausible." Others argue that UFO researchers will see what they want, and that if there's something that even slightly resembles a UFO, they will immediately believe that's what's been photographed, when in reality there could be a very simple explanation. Others have hit back at these sorts of claims, and have said that space is one of the best places to find UFOs. UFO researchers have said that for so long we've been kept in the dark about this topic, and when discoveries like this are made it does seem strange, but this is because we've been told our whole lives that UFOs don't exist, and when anything strange is found scientists are trying to debunk it. Others have made some interesting connections between the government and UFOs, stating that if these crafts aren't real, why have government officials created numerous secret programs to investigate these crafts? Why have officials spoken out about these objects, claiming that they possess technology that exceeds ours? Others though defend the government's decisions to keep us in the dark about this subject, saying that the majority of people can't even handle basic information that's given to them. So how are the masses going to react when they're told that we are part of something much bigger? Going back to the NASA photograph, one interesting thing to note is that NASA had the original photograph on their website, but when you click on the link you're met with a 404 error. Some say it's strange how the image has been taken off the NASA website, stating that perhaps the image did show something mysterious, whereas others say that NASA remove images all the time, and that it's likely just a coincidence. Another thing is that the image is also quite hard to find, with only a few websites still featuring the image. In recent years it seems that more people are talking about unidentified flying objects. Going back several years ago it was a topic that wasn't talked about, or featured in the mainstream media. However, in recent years this has changed. People now more than ever are openly talking about this topic, with even professionals like astronauts being open about their sightings. One person who came forward and talked about UFOs was that of Edgar Mitchell. Edgar Mitchell is perhaps best known for being the 6th person to walk on the moon. Later on in his life, Mitchell became known in the UFO community for being open about the topic, and even going on to detail his encounter with UFOs. He believed that not only were UFOs real, but high-up government officials were hiding the truth from the public, going on to say that throughout his life he had many interesting conversations with high-up officials, and they told him events like Roswell were real. He didn't want to keep this sort of information bottled up, and so opened up about everything he'd been told. He said the following during an interview: "I happen to have been privileged enough to be in on the fact that we've been visited on this planet, and that the UFO phenomenon is real." In reply to this, a spokesman for NASA said the following: "NASA does not track UFOs. NASA is not involved in any sort of cover-up about alien life on this planet, or anywhere in the universe. Dr. Mitchell is a great American, but we do not share his opinions on this issue." Plane mysteries interest many of us, and over the years there's been no shortage of them. The strange story of Pan AM Flight 914 has been shared various times, with many websites calling it one of the biggest aviation mysteries, claiming that even experts are stumped and can't seem to explain what happened. The story goes that a plane took off from New York back in 1955, having 57 passengers on board. It was reported though that the plane never made it to its destination, and actually went missing for 37 years. People soon started to put forward their theories for what happened, but it seemed that the plane vanished into thin air. Things got even stranger when the plane allegedly reappeared and landed in Miami over 3 decades later. One of the most common theories put forward is that the plane went through some kind of time portal. Interestingly, this story allegedly had people that were able to back up this story, with one being that of an air traffic controlman. Although this story sounds incredible, the claims are rooted in fiction, with the story being made up by an online news source. Just because this story turned out to be fake though, there's still many plane mysteries that are waiting to be solved. Perhaps some of the most interesting ones are those involving UFOs. We are told that the majority of UFOs can be explained, with officials saying they are just weather balloons, natural phenomena, military activity, birds, hot air balloons or camera anomalies. But yet there seems to be many pilots that have come forward with their own encounters, with many of them stating that they had no idea what the craft was they just witnessed. One American Airlines pilot reported seeing a dish-shaped craft, and noted that it overtook his plane and covered the curvature of the Earth within seconds. He went on to say that the craft was easily hitting a couple thousand miles per hour, and noted that there's nothing in the United States military that's able to reach those kinds of speeds. It's interesting when people like pilots go on record and detail their encounters. After all, these are the people that spend the most amount of time in the sky, and it's also their job to be able to identify man-made crafts. So when they turn around and say they're not sure of what it is they've just seen, some say it adds credibility to the sighting. One of the most interesting accounts comes from that of Captain Thomas Mantell. Captain Thomas Mantell was an experienced pilot, boasting a flight history of 2,167 hours in the air. Many of these hours have been served during World War II, where he fought for the Allies in the Battle of Normandy, and was rewarded with the Distinguished Flying Cross and Air Medal for his heroism. In 1947 he returned to Louisville, and joined the New Kentucky Air National Guard as a flight leader. However, less than a year into the new job, Mantell's career ended in tragedy when he passed away while in pursuit of an unknown flying object. The object was seen by several of Mantell's colleagues. Base Commander Colonel Guy Hicks reported that it was very white, and around 1/4 the size of the full moon, while observers at the Clinton County airfield described it as the following: having the appearance of a flaming red cone trailing a gaseous green mist, with a speed greater than 500 miles per hour. It was also seen by the Kentucky State Police, who contacted Captain Mantell, requesting for him to investigate the object. Alongside 2 colleagues, Mantell set off in pursuit of the large white object. When his colleagues informed him they were going to retreat and level their altitude to try and see the object more clearly, Mantell ignored them, pursuing the object in a steep climb and at a high altitude. Unfortunately, while at this altitude, Mantell blacked out from the lack of oxygen, and he and his plane crashed at a farm south of Franklin on the Tennessee-Kentucky state line. Mantell passed away on impact. Mantell's death was tragic, but also a monumental occasion in UFO history. Before this point, there had only been a few cases reporting unidentified flying objects, and most of these cases had been dismissed by the public as fads or the delusional sightings of insane men and women. However, Mantell was a highly respected pilot, and the fact he'd laid down his own life to determine what this object was resulted in an increased public concern about UFO phenomena. The official response from the Air Force line where Mantell worked was that the object he'd seen was actually Venus. However, this theory has been attacked by others who argue that on the date of Mantell's death, Venus was only 33 degrees above the horizon, and thus would not have been visible to Mantell. An official investigation was later opened named Project Blue Book that concluded that the object Mantell had been chasing was a skyhook balloon, and part of a top-secret project that neither Mantell nor his colleagues would have known about. These Skyhook balloons were being used by the Navy to measure radiation levels in the upper atmosphere. The Skyhook balloon finding has largely been accepted. However, there's still some skeptics. For example, eyewitness Glenn Mays insists that Mantell was the victim of an attack, as he swears he saw Mantell's plane explode in mid-air as if the result of a bullet. His argument is supported by James Dusler, who states that the damage pattern on Mantell's plane was not consistent with an aircraft crashing at high speeds, but instead one that belly flopped into the clearing, as if it was shot down. There's even those that say that when Mantell's body was found it was riddled with strange holes, which might have been bullet holes. Whether you accept the official line that Mantell was chasing after a Skyhook balloon, or believe he was the victim of a weapon, what Mantell was chasing that day remains a mystery. Yesterday, various photographs started to make the rounds on social media, showing what appear to be ancient Mayan artifacts. One thing that stood out about these though is the mysterious beings, with some saying they look eerily similar to aliens. It's tough to track down who first posted the photographs, as various people have since shared the images online, with others posting them to various websites. Regardless, the story goes that researchers were exploring the ancient Mayan systems when they discovered these artifacts. Reports on where these were found varies depending on where you read, along with websites not being able to track down the original people who discovered the artifacts. Regardless though, they report that a team of archaeologists were surprised to find the ancient ruins, saying that it's one of the biggest discoveries in the area to date. One report states that the artifacts were discovered during the building of the Mayan train. Currently, construction work is underway to build a large railway in Mexico. The construction began in December of 2018, with various people coming forward and saying that strange discoveries have been made in the area. These mysterious artifacts were discovered in a region known as Quintana Roo. There's no other way to describe these artifacts other than they look like extraterrestrials, possessing big eyes, a large oval head and just matching the overall shape of the grey alien. This has had social media users convinced this is the real deal. However, because these images were only posted yesterday, it's been tough to track down more information about them, who found them and where they're currently being held. Not everyone was so impressed with the findings though, with one Mexican archaeologist saying that these are fakes, and that although they were allegedly found with other Mayan artifacts, it's thought they were placed here in order to make the findings seem more genuine. With others saying the following: if this was the real deal, it would be one of the biggest archaeological discoveries ever made. I can't find much information about this either. Searching Google only brings up a few results. I think these are fake." End quote. As some have pointed out though, it seems like a lot of work to go through. Why would someone build these if an archaeologist is just going to shut them down? With another user saying the following: "I'm skeptical about these types of discoveries. On one hand they sound too good to be true, but on the other I want to believe. I'm sure if these are real though, they would likely be taken away and stored. I doubt these will ever be given any serious consideration. After all, could you imagine if these turned out to be real? It would pretty much rewrite history." End quote. This person said the following: "To be honest, 2020 can't get any worse, so discovering alien artifacts underneath Mexico doesn't seem too far-fetched. Let's see what else 2020 brings." End quote. As mentioned, as of right now there's not much information that's been released about the discovery, although local archaeologists are of the opinion that these discoveries are fake, and were likely placed there by someone. It's important to have an open mind when it comes to human history. Every year researchers manage to discover new things about our past. Back in 2018, there appeared to be a discovery that in all pyramids from around the world, including Bosnian pyramid structures and ancient Mayan temple structures, there were large bodies of water discovered in chambers that ran beneath the pyramids and tunnels, and these could have stretched for over 10 miles. Interestingly, when researchers began looking at the pyramids at Giza, there appeared to be a massive underground water tunnel network that ran underneath the Giza plateau that had long since been dried out. This led researchers to look more into what was believed to be naturally formed water chambers, and the role they could have played in the construction of the large pyramid and other pyramid constructions. They found that although water beneath structures usually plays a large role in the instability of the base of the structure, it appeared as if the networks of tunnels and water chambers found in pyramids from all around the world appeared to not threaten the stability of the pyramid. This led researchers to believe the tunnels must have been accounted for in the construction of the pyramid, or possibly added after construction with the pyramid's stability in mind. Still to this day, Egyptologists and researchers are completely unaware as to what the role of these underwater chambers helped to play in the construction of the pyramids, and why they seem to be so important to the structures found all around the world. Currently, the only working theory is the introduction of a hydromechanical purpose, or that of added underground pressure to certain areas of the structure. What's interesting is that these discoveries and structures are only a small portion of what survived over the years. Researchers have come forward and suggested that 98% of our past has vanished from our planet, so it's unlikely we'll know the details of our ancient ancestors. Although it's easy to dismiss these cases, it's important that we carry out further investigations. Sometimes our attitude towards certain topics is our downfall. Going into things with an open mind is always a good idea. So, although it seems like at first these ancient structures are fake, it's important for archaeologists to conduct further research. The UFO community are certain that unidentified flying objects have been visiting our planet for years, and they point to things like ancient Egyptian scriptures to back this up. It's said that this was one of the first recorded UFO sightings. The events that allegedly occurred in the ancient kingdom were reported in great detail in the Tulu Papyrus, a text that was discovered thousands of years later in 1933 in an antique shop in Italy. It's reported that these objects shone brighter in the sky than the sun, even going on to detail them as a circle of fire or a fiery disk. It's these types of discoveries that have caused some to keep an open mind. Mike Tyson has gone down in history as being one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. During his prime, he was labelled a knockout artist. He also held many titles. For example, one being that he became the youngest heavyweight boxing champion of the world, and he did this in 1986 at the young age of 20. He was introduced to boxing trainer Costamato, where he would begin to mould Mike into one of the greatest fighters of all time. Since stopping fighting though, Mike has changed his outlook on life. The once aggressive man now has a much more calm demeanour, explaining that he didn't like who he was in the ring, and that certain parts of his life actually scared him. This caused him to make a drastic change. A few days back he featured on the Joe Rogan Podcast, one of the most watched podcasts in the world. Joe has made it obvious he's interested in topics such as Bigfoot, UFOs, secret government programs, and trying to understand human history. It was during this show that an interesting conversation started between Joe and Mike. He asked the former heavyweight champ, "What do you think about aliens?" Tyson then said the following: "Listen, there's more stars in space than there are grains of sand in the desert. Can you imagine that? I think we are aliens. I think we're descendants of aliens. If you can't explain, if you can only tell me about Adam and Eve, I'm going to go with aliens. If that's what you're hitting me with, Adam and Eve, I'm going with these alien guys." Joe then replies with the following: "There's a lot of people that believe we're the product of aliens. That aliens came down and did some experiments with lower hominids, and did some accelerated genetic experiments and created people. To which Tyson responded with the following: "Well, listen, when certain tribes of people, I'm not saying Caucasians, when they came to Africa, even before that, when people came to other people and the first time they saw them, they were aliens. Maybe they weren't aliens, but that's what they thought they were. They were just a tribe of people that encountered them. Although the idea of aliens coming to Earth and carrying out experiments sounds like it belongs in a movie, there are many people that believe this happened, and that perhaps an ancient civilization travelled to Earth and seeded it, allowing for life to flourish. It sounds far-fetched because we're not taught these theories, with mainstream scientists saying there's no proof this happened and so it can't be taught. It's interesting to note that over 95% of our prehistory has been lost, so it can be tough for historians and archaeologists to answer many of the questions that people have. UFOs certainly aren't a modern day thing. They've been depicted in old paintings and scriptures, with one of the oldest coming from the ancient Egyptian civilization. It's these encounters that's caused some to think that perhaps these crafts have been visiting our planet for years. There was even reports of unidentified flying objects in biblical times. Even today, with the skies filled with drones, helicopters and planes, UFOs are still a source of mystery. Imagine then the level of disbelief of seeing such objects before the actual invention of the aeroplane. Whilst we might think of the UFO as a 20th century phenomenon, the late 19th century saw many astounding reports that brought to those who witnessed them both wonder and fear in equal measures. Almost a decade before the Wright brothers' first flight, numerous sightings of strange cigar-shaped UFOs were spotted across the United States. Starting in 1896 to 1897, these mystery airships were bigger and faster than anything known at the time. The first sighting was reported in the winter of 1896. A light was seen slowly moving across the Sacramento night sky on November 17th, with otherworldly sounds being heard as it passed overhead. Another mysterious encounter happened on April 17, 1897, when inhabitants in a rural American town saw a single alien spacecraft lose control over the skies of Texas. A young boy saw an airship trailing smoke as it headed north towards the town of Aurora, slowing and speeding as it tried to regain control over its trajectory. It sailed over the public square, reaching the northern part of town where it clipped the edge of a windmill at speed, then veering into the path of the town's water tower where, upon contact, blew into a number of pieces, scattering debris over several acres of ground and awakening many of the town's residents. The residents that awoke went to investigate the source of the early wake-up call. What they found would astound the townspeople. Having read about numerous mystery airships in national newspapers recently, including an abduction attempt, they wondered if this was something not only extraterrestrial, but also evil in nature. On locating the ship's sole occupant, although the pilot had passed away, they soon realized the humanoid was clearly not an inhabitant of this world. Furthermore, strange markings in the manner of hieroglyphic characters were seen on the internal control panel. Terrified of the unknown, the townspeople quickly buried the body in the nearby cemetery, and removing the wreckage in the hopes that the incident would disappear from the town's history. Allegedly, there's also been mysterious artifacts that have been left behind by people that detailed their encounters with beings that resemble extraterrestrials. One that's confused many scientists and researchers over the years is that of the lost dropper stones. Discovered in 1962 by a man named Chu Wemming, the dropper stones were described as being a series of 716 circular stone discs that were dated as far back as 12,000 years ago, predating the first human civilizations. The stones were inscribed with tiny hieroglyphic-like images that detailed a strange story of possible extraterrestrial origin. This story was allegedly translated to state that a strange species of being had descended from a cloud in the sky. After realizing they were unable to ascend back into the skies, they were then forced to begin to adapt and live on the planet. The story then detailed that, unaware of the nature of these strange beings and their intentions, the local Han Chinese began to hunt them down and eventually wipe them all out. According to the researcher Chu Wemming, the images seem similar to that of modern-day UFO sightings and flying saucers. Believing these stones to be evidence of the record of ancient extraterrestrial contact, in 1962 Chu Wemming published his findings to the archaeological community, only for it to be ridiculed and discredited, and caused Chu Wemming to go to Japan in a self-induced exile of shame. Further information surrounding the stones were described in the Soviet magazine known as Sputnik, that claimed a handful of these stones were sent from a museum to Moscow. Supposedly a doctor by the name of Vasilav Sayev describes an experiment in which the discs were placed on a special turntable, where they began to vibrate or hum in an unusual repeating rhythm, as they possessed an electric current passing through them. Since these experiments and findings, the stones have gone missing, only for them to have never surfaced again. This could very well mean that not only were the stones legitimate in their details, and evidence of ancient extraterrestrial contact, but the effort was made by the Chinese and Russian government to cover up these strange artifacts, and prevent them from ever being seen again. Many people in the ancient alien community speculate that perhaps these discs could have contained a massive amount of digital data, and could be the smoking gun evidence of ancient extraterrestrial contact. For years people have been digging into the ground, and it's during this process that many interesting discoveries have been made. Interestingly, the majority of these discoveries were made by accident, and in some cases it's caused some to make a small fortune. However, in some cases people discover things that leave them with more questions than answers. It's fair to say that many people are interested in our ancient history, and with this comes a variety of different theories that have been put forward. For example, some believe that over time we became more advanced, while others believe that going back advanced civilizations called this planet home. One thing to note though is that even archaeologists have said that 97% of human history has been lost, and this can make it hard to track what we were doing during certain time periods. So knowing this, it's important to keep an open mind about our past. This interesting box was discovered in Russia. Not much information has been released about the discovery, but depending on where you read, the story goes that a box was discovered that had some strange contents. When the original person opened the box, they were surprised to find a mysterious looking skull. It was noted as looking unnatural, with some suggesting that it could be that of an alien, while others went down the route of suggesting that it was a demon. Regardless, photographs soon started to make the rounds on UFO websites and social media, with others saying that the skull does look to be that of an alien. It has 2 large eye sockets and appears to be fairly small, matching the description of the typical grey aliens that have been reported in many abduction stories. It's these stories that have caused some to be more open-minded when these types of discoveries are made. One person said the following about the skull: "I find discoveries like this really interesting. For years we have been finding mysterious humanoid skulls, and every time we are told that they're just everyday humans. For me, skulls like the Paracas skulls need to be investigated more. Some of these skulls weighed more than 60% more than a modern human's, and some of these have a volume more than 30% that of a human. Along with this, there's other mysterious things like they don't have a sagittal suture, a fibrous connective tissue joint found in all human skulls. This skull could be the same thing. Perhaps it comes from something that did live on this earth, or perhaps it's more mysterious in nature. Scientists need to stop scoffing at the idea of there being alien life, and rather looking at the possibility that this may be what we're looking at. The quicker we get over calling this type of thing a fringe topic, the quicker we'll get answers." End quote. However, not everyone is entirely convinced that the skull is of alien origin. One user said the following about the mysterious discovery: "I can understand why at first glance these discoveries make the news and cause excitement. After all, they do look very strange, and would fit in with the narrative of it belonging to a mysterious creature, or even that of an alien. Unfortunately, this is not the case. I'm an amateur archaeologist and have actually come across these skulls, and it's true, when I first found one I too was a little surprised. It wasn't until I did further research that they have a very natural explanation. It didn't take long for me to get an answer. These skulls belong to the bovids. For those unaware, that's the family of cloven hoof creatures. These creatures are of course very well known to science, and are most likely the best candidate to explain these strange looking skulls." End quote. Interestingly, other researchers have come forward and backed up these claims, and say that although the skulls don't exactly look the same, the overall skull looks to be that of a mountain goat. However, others have hit back these claims, and say the eye sockets are completely different, and that the overall volume of the skull would likely be more than that of a goat. As mentioned, it's important to note that much of our history has been lost, and it's caused some to put forward more out there theories. For example, some believe that certain skulls that have been found don't in fact belong to humans, but rather those of time travelers, or even other species that may have visited our planet in the past. There's then those that suggest that other life forms visited our planet in the past. These people call these civilizations the space people, or ancient astronauts, and they even claim there's proof of them in various locations across our planet. For example, they say that one can be found on a rock. Though ancient alien enthusiasts refer to the find as evidence of advanced ancient alien civilizations, many amongst the time traveler groups argue the same evidence can be used to back up the claims of time traveling humans. One such piece is that of an ancient stone figure found in the middle of a number of ancient Mayan ruins down in Guatemala that features an almost perfect recreation of a modern-day astronaut. This stone figure has been at the center of many ancient alien debates, claiming that the gods were depicted in such a way due to the fact they were merely alien creatures visiting from faraway planets, and required a complex breathing apparatus to survive in our atmosphere. Interestingly, time travel enthusiasts argue this is evidence of future humans having visited the past, given how it resembles that of a modern-day astronaut. This, coupled with the arguments that an alien species could very well not require, or even have a number of different spacesuit designs, help to hold the arguments that the carved stone must be that of a human being, having travelled through the past in modern-day astronaut gear. Additionally, many time travel groups argue that for one to travel through time, it must also require that participant to travel through space, as a single day in the future is several million miles away as the Earth, the Sun and our collective solar system moves through space. This means that if a human from the future was to visit humans in the past, they would overwhelmingly require astronaut equipment just to survive the journey. As of today, it seems that people are still open to the idea of there being advanced civilizations, and that at one point in time they may have called this planet home. Every year, many people witness unidentified flying objects in the sky. The majority of these eventually get explained, but there are some that remain a mystery and get labelled by UFO researchers as the real deal. What's interesting though is when professionals like airline pilots, astronauts and even the police detail their encounters. People give these types of sightings more credibility, as these people for the most part are said to be level-headed. However, one Marshall County sheriff was left confused after he encountered some mysterious lights in the sky. The story begins in 1979, when a county sheriff was on patrol at 1:40 AM. As he was driving down Highway 220, he claims that he drove into a ball of white light. He claimed the object was very bright, measuring in at 8 to 12 inches in diameter, and hovering roughly 3 to 4 feet off the ground. Johnson said this in a police interview, going on to say that the object had edges that were very defined. As the sheriff drove towards the light, something happened, as the next thing he remembers is waking up in a nearby ditch. When he made it back to his car though, it was obvious that something had happened, as the windshield and one of the lights was smashed, along with the radio antenna being bent back. Interestingly, the watch on his wrist and also the clock in his car were 14 minutes behind. The news soon reached the media, where various articles were put out about the event, even calling the sheriff's car the UFO car. The sheriff's car can be seen at the Marshall County Museum. It often gets displayed around the country, with the story being retold. So what actually happened? UFO researchers have labelled the incident as one of the most important UFO cases, and this is because it's not just a story, there's actual physical evidence to back up their claims, something that doesn't happen very often in the world of ufology. The story goes that after the encounter, Sheriff Johnson didn't want to be contacted, and even went on to distance himself from his friends and family, living a quiet life and not wanting to talk about the events that unfolded that night. As it turns out though, this isn't the case, and various people have managed to get hold of him in recent years. When asked about what happened that night and whether it was a UFO, the sheriff said the following: "People don't really ask me about that anymore. I remember looking up at the sky and thinking what happened. After that I pretty much got on with my life." Although he noted that at the time it was a very big deal, and many people wanted to hear his story, from news stations to national papers. At the time everyone was interested in what he made contact with that night. Perhaps though one of the strangest things about this case is how he just doesn't seem to care. Although the experience had changed his life because people would constantly ask him what happened, it was as if he didn't even care. Some UFO researchers have said it's strange how something so mysterious can happen to someone, yet they don't really seem to care. After all, if this happened to most people, they'd want answers for what they made contact with. He's even said himself that he lost time after hitting the light. He said that he's had people turn up at his house and speculate about what it was, going on to say that he usually just sips a drink and waits until they go away. He's not against the idea of it being an unidentified flying object, or even linked to extraterrestrials, but said that he won't speculate about what happened that day. He said the following: "I saw a ball of light. I drove towards it and suddenly it was in the car with me. It's unexplainable and will remain so. I'm happy with my mental stability." Interestingly though, other UFO researchers defended his outlook, and said that many people who encounter things like UFOs have this outlook, saying that in a way it's a coping mechanism. Those who encounter UFOs behave differently. Some become obsessed with what happened and want answers for what they saw, while others question if what they saw was even there in the first place, or some just brush it aside and move on with their life, knowing that there's a high possibility that they'll never truly know what they encountered. The sheriff did say that at most it's just an interesting story to tell at the bar. His account though does seem to stand out, with researchers saying they don't think there's ever been someone who's had such a close encounter, and doesn't seem to care about what it was. After all, driving into a bright light, being knocked out for several minutes, and waking up outside of your car with your watch not working is the stuff of fiction. Yet this individual had proof this happened. Skeptics though have said they have another idea, and instead he may have accidentally crashed the car, and as a way of covering for himself made up the story of the UFO. In a way this makes much more sense, and some have said it's caused them to say this because of his outlook, saying that if this happened to anyone else, there would be a part of them that would want answers. However, others came to his defense, and said that we all handle these types of things different, saying that he might just be in denial. Close encounters are perhaps one of the most interesting topics when talking about UFOs. It seems so out there, yet so many have detailed similar encounters. The question is, if they were lying, why would people go through the trouble of coming forward with their story, knowing that they'll be judged? It's an interesting topic that many still don't understand. At this moment in time we can only speculate. UFO researchers have said though it's one of the best close encounter experiences, and that it's likely that we'll never truly understand what happened that night. A fairy is a mythical creature that's usually depicted as being small, having a humanoid body, small wings, and in some reports is even able to glow. The Eastern Virginia Medical School carried out a study in the 1970s, in which they asked everyday Americans about their belief in the supernatural. The study showed that over 2/3 of them had an experience that they couldn't explain. There's many people that believe in certain regions of our planet, small fairy-like creatures can be found, and that at first they can be tough to make out due to how fast they fly. However, those who are able to get decent photographs do show what appears to be tiny fairy-like creatures. This person shared these interesting photographs to their Facebook page. At first glance they appear to look like the typical fairy we will think of. They said the following about the photographs. My friend from Agatha visited me. Some of you will say it's just a moth, but it's not. I always meet them every night. End quote. With another person saying the following. You must have a very special relationship. They don't like people or cameras from what I understand. End quote. This person said this. These photographs are interesting and I think they do show a fairy. If you look at a photograph of a moth and then compare it to this, it's completely different. Moths don't have thin bodies and legs like that. I think that people need to be more open-minded about these creatures. I think it's quite obvious that there's something going on. My friends have seen creatures that look similar to this, and it's true that when they're around you they do look like moths, but upon closer inspection you can see these are tiny fairy-like creatures. However, not everyone is convinced by these types of discoveries. Skeptics have pointed out these are just everyday creatures, with one person saying the following. I see these in my garden all the time, and they're not fairies but rather midges. End quote. For those unaware, midges are small flying insects that have a maximum wingspan of 2 to 4 millimeters. There's over 35 different species of these creatures in the UK alone, with wildlife researchers noting that they live in practically every land area outside of dry deserts. There's people though that state this isn't what they're seeing in their photographs, and that believe fairy-like creatures do live in certain regions on our planet. It seems that there's no shortage of mysterious creatures living among us. The Irish have their leprechauns and the Scandinavians have their trolls. Latin America has El Duende. Standing less than 2 feet tall, El Duende is said to cause mischief wherever they are seen. They are described as being covered in hair, including long bushy beards for the men. Some also described a wide brim hat. In Latin American folklore, these mysterious creatures can hail from the forest or live inside the walls of your home. They are mostly seen by children, as they tend to be mischievous and childlike themselves. They are also blamed for quite a bit of strange doings around one's home. Your missing keys or that important paper that went missing. This has caused some to say that these creatures are playing tricks on you. In most stories they seem fairly harmless. Some even suggest offering up your first bite to any meal to them, as to keep them on your good side. They are said to lend a helping hand around the house. Other locals have reported that if you get lost in the woods, you can call out to these creatures and they will help you. This seemed to remain true as long as you weren't causing harm. When boys go out to play in the woods, they are warned of the Watcher of the Woods. Little boys were told not to make too much mischief in the woods, and not to cause harm to any of the animals. El Duende was always watching you, and if he spotted you doing wrong, he would appear to you and take you to his cave, which many stories state is deep inside the woods. The only way to escape was to fool him into thinking you was one of his kind. El Duende only has 4 fingers. If you could hide your thumb and convince him so, he would let you go. Another tale tells of the sleeping El Duende. Settling in for a nap, the creature would rest against a tree, slowly disguising themselves as the clay around them. Children would find small clay statues of little gnomes throughout the woods, and would sometimes take them home. During the night they would sneak off back into the woods. When the children awoke and found the figure missing, they knew for sure that they'd plucked one of the small gnomes. Interestingly, although these sound like childish tales, many have come forward with alleged proof of these creatures' existence. There have been many sightings, pictures and videos that point to this creature being genuine. Many people, whether they believe in many folktales or not, believe in the El Duende's existence. Some put them in the same category as Bigfoot or Chupacabra. Others believe it just to be a cautionary tale to boys heading into the woods. Whether it's a tale to keep children out of trouble, or simply a tale meant to elicit fear, urban legends will continue to be told as long as stories exist. It may be because they're just fun. Some believe, however, it gives us a very keen insight into our deepest fears as humans. Perhaps it's that keeps us coming back for more. Others suggest that the majority of these stories are based on real events, and that over time they've just been retold. As mentioned earlier, there's no shortage of mysterious creature encounters, and every year people come forward with their stories, detailing impossible to explain creatures. Perhaps the study of cryptids needs to be taken more seriously. After all, people from all around the world have reported encountering creatures not recognized by science, with some even being able to provide photographic evidence. Maybe it won't be long before scientists make a breakthrough in some of these cases. As many know, it's no secret that there's various locations on our planet that remain unexplored. So maybe some of these cryptids could be hiding away in these isolated places. Only time will tell whether these creatures live among us, or just in our imagination. Underwater bases sounds like works of fiction, or something you would hear in a movie. However, the reality is there's many secret bases scattered across our planet, some of which everyday people don't know about. Some amateur researchers have even said it's likely that governments do have underwater bases, and this wouldn't be out of the scope due to the advantages they would have. After all, having bases located beneath the waves would come in handy in many ways. For example, recently there's been images captured of a Chinese submarine departing an underwater base, which revealed that the idea of underwater bases is very much a reality, and caused some to say that if China has done this, it's likely that other countries have or will follow in their footsteps. Then there's those people that suggest that underwater bases aren't built for or used by us, but rather they're being used by an advanced race that call this planet home. Google Earth allows anyone to scan the planet from the comfort of their home, and this has caused many interesting discoveries to be made in recent years. And perhaps one of the most interesting ones is that of the Malibu underwater alien base. This interesting discovery started to make headlines when it was first discovered, and that's because people labelled this as an underwater alien base, and this is one of those cases where you can understand why. At first glance, the object does look to resemble that of a building, with what appears to be large pillars holding up the bulk of the object. The discovery was made 6 miles off the coast of Point Dume in Malibu, California. The object pretty much sits on the seabed, looks to be oval in shape and is pretty large. Google Earth images revealed this object is in fact massive, measuring in at around 3 miles in length, having what appears to be pillars and even a large entrance. It's not hard to imagine why various theories have been put forward to try and explain it. According to various websites that look into UFOs and the paranormal, they suggest that the massive structure is a UFO and USO base. Many people have heard of unidentified flying objects, but many may not be aware of unidentified submerged objects. These are unidentified flying objects that are seen in and around oceans, with some people even claiming that they've seen these crafts entering the water without making a splash. It's not just random people who have reported seeing these crafts either. People in the military have seen these large UFOs enter the water without making a sound, and even reported them staying under the water for several hours. It's these types of reports that have caused some to think that there's bases under the oceans that these crafts use, and that perhaps they could be part of something much bigger. These USOs are reported to look very similar to UFOs, and it's caused some to question whether the two are different, or whether normal UFOs have the ability to go underwater without being detected. Regardless, when the underwater discovery was found, it was hailed as being one of the best discoveries in regards to USOs, and that it may just prove that they do exist after all. One UFO researcher said the following about the discovery: "I think I was the same as many people when I first saw this, and that was that I couldn't believe this was real. At first I thought it was fake, but the object is very much real." What's interesting about this discovery is how artificial it looks. I've seen reefs, cliffs and other underwater structures, but there's something about this that looks different. As many have pointed out, it seems to have giant pillars, as if it's this that holds up the structure itself. This and the many reports made around the area of UFOs has caused it to be a hotspot, and you can't blame people for thinking this may be connected to UFOs and USOs. One thing that stands out is how the object itself looks like a giant UFO. When you look at it from a bird's point of view, it looks to be oval-shaped. Everything here also looks as though it was made. It looks symmetrical. When you view things in nature, even things that humans have built, they hold their shape. For example, when people discover things like ships, we're still able to tell that it's a ship. So that's another thing about this object that stands out, the fact that it looks to be a type of building." End quote. However, not everyone agrees with the idea this is linked to USOs, with David Schwartz of the US Geological Survey coming forward and saying the following: "I didn't see anything special about it. I think it's because it looks like there's a flat surface, and then below it looks like there's these vertical columns. So somebody can say, I think this is an entrance to something special. I think it's natural and is part of the continental shelf. It's just a complicated part of what's now offshore, and that it's seen some erosion, and maybe slumping when perhaps this was partially exposed when sea level was lower. This is a really major earthquake area, and perhaps some of these features are a result of slope failures, which is due to shaking. There's no flag under the water that says I'm an entrance to an alien base. There's nothing unnatural looking about it. It's just showing some sort of variation in the offshore coastal morphology." End quote. Although officials think the structure is natural, and definitely isn't an alien base, there's still some that think this isn't the case, and that the many USOs that have been reported back up the claims that this is something more mysterious. Although people can say their thoughts on whichever one you believe, one thing to bear in mind is that over 95% of our ocean remains unexplored, and that every year scientists and researchers are still making incredible discoveries beneath the waves. In fact, it's said that every year scientists discover between 1,000 and 2,000 new species, showcasing just how little we know about the underwater world. Underwater archaeologists are even finding ancient ruins beneath our oceans, showing us that at one point in time people would have lived here. It's likely that as the years go on, scientists and amateur researchers are going to find more interesting discoveries. Whether they will agree on what they found though is another matter. All throughout history, people have claimed to have seen God, spoke to God, and even received messages they've been told to pass on. There appears to be a number of strange and unexplainable phenomena centered around religious gatherings and events. Many have found these events to be impossible to explain in the modern day. Additionally, many of these strange and mysterious religious events seem to point to the idea that perhaps our world is far stranger than we ever realized. For many years now, people across the planet believe there's a higher power, and that the term God can refer to many things. Regardless of what you believe in, for some it gives them strength when life is tough, and for others God can be a kind of partner that follows them through life, guiding them along the way when they feel lost. For others, however, they feel like many years ago it made sense to believe in higher powers. For example, when there was an earthquake or a thunderstorm, ancient humans would believe this was the gods getting angry. We now know that events like this happen naturally, causing some to suggest that we need to move on from superstition. Regardless, many religious people believe that God is very much real, and miracles can happen every day. Back in March of 2018, it was reported that a mum from Georgia tried to prove that God was real to her children. However, the way in which she did this raised many eyebrows. It was said that in order to prove that God was real, she would drive fast and crash her car into a pole. Mrs. Warren, who was at the time aged 25, told authorities at the scene that she collided with a pole on purpose, and that this was done in order to prove to her children that God would protect them. It seems though that on this occasion God was busy, as the car crashed into the pole. Thankfully, everyone involved didn't sustain any serious injuries, but questions were raised as to why this demonstration was carried out by the mother. When the children were interviewed about the event, they said the following: "Her eyes was closed and she was saying blah blah blah, I love God." Her daughter went on to say the following: "She didn't want us to just have a car accident. She wanted us to know that God is real." As you can imagine though, this didn't go down well with officials, who soon arrested the woman and charged her with purposefully harming her kids. According to the officers, the children were placed in the care of their grandparents. One question that often comes up in regards to religion is what proof do we have that it's real? Various people have given accounts of what they think God looks like, and this started an interesting study. A team of US psychologists have said they finally have the answer to that question. The researchers at the University of North Carolina have managed to create what they describe as a portrait of God. The bold claim was made after the team studied people's perception of God, and they said this is what the result was. When the image was revealed, many voiced their opinions however, with some saying that it looks nothing like God, while others said you can't put an image on God as God is everything. It appears that the painting showed God to be a young Caucasian man, something that many said was completely off. The reason they got to this image was because various religious people took part in a test. They were shown many images and had to pick the ones they thought resembled God the most. All of the samples they selected were put into a program that created a composite image. Joshua Conrad Jackson, who led the study at the University of North Carolina, said that the images also gave them an insight into how politics played into their views of God. Interestingly, he said that people who were conservative would go for a strong-looking Caucasian face, while liberals viewed God as looking more feminine and being on the younger side. Dr. Jackson said the following about the study: "These biases might have stemmed from the type of societies that liberals and conservatives want. Past research shows that conservatives are more motivated than liberals to live in a well-ordered society, one that would be best regulated by a powerful God. On the other hand, liberals are more motivated to live in a tolerant society, which would be better regulated by a loving God." Some have pointed out though that this study is flawed, and that this is just based on a few people's ideas of what God looks like. In reality, many people have different opinions on what God looks like. Some imagine God as looking like Michelangelo's painting Adam's Creation, being an old man with a large white beard. However, as some have pointed out, there's no proof as to what God looks like. Even in the Bible there's no indication as to what God looks like. Then there's others that have said that God doesn't exist, and our creation was due to a number of random events occurring. Some researchers are of the opinion that these issues are far too complex for us to figure out, saying that we have a narrow-minded view of things. There are then those that say they believe in God, but not in the conventional way, saying that they think God isn't necessarily a human, but rather an intelligent humanoid and that we are designed after them. This is what ancient theorists call the ancient civilization theory, stating that at one point in time this world was populated by advanced beings, and in turn they created what is now modern humans. It's put forward that these ancient beings were travellers and they arrived on our planet and created humans. People who believe in this theory state that advanced civilizations left behind clues they were here, some of which include incredibly well-built objects that have stood up against the test of time. This theory is of course not backed by scientists, who say that although it makes for an interesting idea, there's no evidence to back up that advanced civilizations existed and created humans. A well-known theory regarding how the universe came to be is called the Big Bang Theory. This idea is backed by many of the world's best scientists. The Big Bang Theory argues that around 15 billion years ago, all known matter and energy was held in a single point, known as a singularity. This point of singularity began to expand over 300,000 years, until it was no longer a single point. Instead, everything spread out, expanding even further. Energy began to gather and form heat and matter, which eventually shaped stars, galaxies, and eventually planets. From there, forms of life came into being. The Big Bang Theory rests on the idea that everything that now exists came from one single point, and this is most likely credited to an expanding universe. One of the largest predators to have lived on this planet was that of the megalodon. This creature could easily grow to be over 60 feet long, and had a bite more powerful than Tyrannosaurus rex. Strangely enough, although sharing a timeline that would have placed this creature on Earth around the same time as our prehistoric ancestors, suddenly and quite rapidly the megalodon went extinct. Although the question as to what caused the extinction of the species has remained a mystery for decades, with other species of sharks from around that time still existing to this day, new research appears to have an explanation as to this strange mystery. Fishermen are perhaps some of the best people to talk to about ocean life. After all, they're the ones that spend the most time on the water. Why is it then that we hear stories about oversized sharks matching the description of the megalodon? It's these stories that has caused some to speculate that perhaps these giant sharks are still roaming our oceans. Various photographs have been presented which allegedly show these giant sharks, and one that's often shared in cryptid groups is this one. It allegedly shows two megalodon sharks off the coast of Australia. It's usually followed with a brief description that states a fisherman was using Google Earth and stumbled across these two giant sharks. Those who believe that the creature still exists usually get excited when these types of images appear online, leaving them to think that the king of the ocean may still be alive. However, after further investigation is carried out, there's usually a more logical explanation. This image is genuine, but it turns out that it's actually two whales that were captured via Google Earth. Another large shark that people can still allegedly see today has become known as the black demon shark. This shark is said to live off the coast of Mexico, and every so often the locals, tourist divers and fishermen get a glimpse of this giant, causing some to theorize that perhaps the megalodon has somehow managed to survive. Many of these reports and sightings have been made by a number of fishermen across the Mexican coast, and they have claimed to have seen a massive black shark roughly 60 feet in length, and resembling the build of a great white shark, but with that of a dark coloration across its body and a massively sized tail. Given the fact that many of these reports fit the modern day recreations using megalodon skeletons, as well as their average sized tail, it's led many to believe that it could be a possible hunting ground for the creature. Additionally, many of the fishermen that have reported the sighting have often been veterans in their field, never having once claimed such sightings in the past, and having more than enough experience with different species of whales throughout the region. One fisherman described fishing in the area and hooking onto a large fish. However, when he brought the fish in, it had been chewed in half. This wasn't unusual because great whites can be found in the area. However, when he looked at the bite marks, they was around 3 times larger than that of a great white. To this day, no one has been able to identify what the black demon shark is. So what's the reason that scientists give as to why the megalodon went extinct? Though many would remark that the size of the megalodon made it an incredible predator that helped to allow the creature to dominate the oceans during its reign, the truth is that the creature's large stature actually proved to be more of a hindrance in nature than an actual benefit. In order to support its massive body weight and muscle growth, the body of the megalodon had a tremendous metabolism that only caused the creature to require massive amounts of food and resources constantly available in its environment in order not to starve. This calorie requirement would have forced the megalodon to eat more than 2,500 pounds of meat a day just to survive, making it next to impossible to not starve if the creature found itself in an area void of a large abundance of natural prey. Given the fact that the diet of this massive shark was made up mostly of turtles and seals, the megalodon would have been forced to be in a constant state of hunting just to meet its daily calorie requirements, even going as far as possibly eating its own young in times of stress, and engaging in risky behaviours just to locate a possible food source that would most likely deplete in a short matter of time. Given the fact that the megalodon often travelled over vast distances, this led to high probabilities of winding up in areas that did not contain an adequate food source, and ultimately left the entire species incredibly vulnerable. These problems are only made worse when one takes into consideration how an environment can be easily changed by seasons, which would mean that the megalodon would be forced to travel greater distances, or be highly susceptible to starvation if any dramatic changes in climate happened. Given the creature's massive size and its constant need for an adequate amount of calories just to live, this led to the creature to ultimately become a species that suffered from a high rate of competition with both neighbouring species and its own kind. Though many times in the animal kingdom, having a larger physique allows certain evolutionary advantages when it comes to the realm of competition, other times it can lead to a much higher resource scarcity for the species in question. The megalodon, due to its large size, was capable of eating a wider range of foods that included schools of fish, turtles, seals, and every now and then a lone whale. Due to its food supply being made up of many different marine animals, the megalodon was always competing with those animals' natural predators for food. This meant that their finely tuned ecosystem could only support a lower population density of the megalodon, due to its constant competition with members of its own species. This translates into not only the megalodon being a mostly solitary marine animal, but a tremendously high risk in not finding a mate given their incredibly low population numbers. In conclusion, mainstream scientists completely debunk any claim involving a megalodon shark, saying that our current climate cannot support a shark the size of a megalodon. There's simply not enough food, and that if they were real there would be more than just a few scattered sightings. Some theorists though have suggested that these giants now live in deeper waters, and only come out when they need to. Something to bear in mind though is that 95% of the ocean is still unexplored, so theorists say that until someone has explored every part of the ocean, we can't say they don't exist. So far, scientists have discovered over 242,500 marine species. However, it's estimated that every year over 2,000 new oceanic species are discovered. While people still report encountering giant sharks, stories of megalodon being alive will persist well into the future. Antarctica is a place that's shrouded in mystery. This in turn has caused a variety of different theories to be put forward about what's there, why you can't visit certain regions, and what might be hiding underneath the ice. Various stories have come out over the years that involve people seeing strange things in this region. One of the issues that people have though is trying to verify these reports. After all, they are just stories. This in turn has caused amateur researchers to look into these accounts themselves, and one way they do this is by using tools such as Google Earth. Incredibly, people have gone on to make strange discoveries, one of which is this mysterious line of structures. The image has been shared online many times, with each person giving their opinions on what the structure might be. UFO channels have suggested that the structures could be connected to UFOs, and the vast amount of sightings that's been made there, while others say that it could be linked to the military and that they're working on something. One thing that's noted is that each of these structures is unique, and this is made obvious when you zoom in. What's strange is that nearby these structures is what appears to be a large hole that goes into the ground, but this is blacked out. This isn't anything new. Certain places on Google Earth and maps get blacked out if it's to do with the military, or if it's a secret place that officials don't want the public knowing about. Could this be why certain regions in Antarctica don't allow access to the public? Because they are carrying out their own testing here? Also, where does this hole lead to? Underground bases are nothing new, and these secret installations exist all across our planet, helping to give those in power more privacy. But why would officials go out of their way to build such a structure in Antarctica? This is where the theories come in. As mentioned, over the years various different theories have been brought to light as to why bases should be built here. Some researchers have said that various countries are aware of these objects, and that certain places on our planet are hotspots for these crafts. UFO researchers have said that Antarctica is one place of particular interest. Many stories have come from this region, detailing that not only are these objects particularly interested in Antarctica, but some have even been caught by satellites, proving to some that these unidentified flying objects are interested in this area. This has caused various people to search through Google Earth in the hopes of finding something, and in some cases people are able to make some interesting finds, fueling their beliefs that alleged UFOs and pyramids can be found scattered throughout the icy continent. For example, not only does the size of these alleged mountains display the proportions of a perfect pyramid, but some have claimed that they're even bigger than the pyramids found in Egypt. According to some, this could very well mean that the continent of Antarctica is home to one of the last surviving remnants of an ancient civilization, vastly predating the existence of the human race. Although some theorists think they've struck gold and have possibly found something otherworldly, others have hit back at these claims, and suggest that what people are finding has nothing to do with UFOs. What these people suggest is that these are everyday objects, and likely come from their surroundings. For example, one of the most common things that gets put forward is that what people are seeing is shadows or just part of the mountain that's broken off. But this discovery doesn't seem to be part of the natural landscape, and if it was, why would they go through the effort of ensuring this area was blacked out? It's discoveries like this that's caused some to think that there's more going on in Antarctica than what we're being told, and it's very likely that whatever has been discovered there will be held a secret. Bear in mind as well how harsh the climate is, and how hard it would be to build a base here or even explore the region for a certain amount of time. Some have said that something really interesting must be here for officials to go through this much work. Another interesting discovery comes in the form of the Pygmy map. This map is the oldest map to show the Americas, and to this day it still confuses many people. In 1929, a group of historians discovered something incredible drawn on a gazelle skin. After the document was studied, research and tests showed that it was genuine. It was drawn in 1513 by Pygmy, a famous admiral of the Turkish fleet in the 16th century. What's interesting is that he's primarily known today for his maps and charts, specifically for how accurate they are. He was highly ranked within the Turkish Navy. One thing that many people question is why it shows Antarctica without ice. Antarctica was mostly icy forest, and for the last 15 million years, it's been a frozen desert under a thick ice sheet. On the map, the northern coastline of Antarctica is detailed. Another thing that stands out is the map is very accurate. How did this happen when the map was created 300 years before it's discovered? Interestingly, on the 6th of July 1960, the US Air Force responded to a letter sent by Professor Charles Hapgood. He was asking for an evaluation of the ancient map. This was the response. Dear Professor Hapgood, your request of evaluation of certain unusual features of the Piri-Reis Antarctica map of 1513 by this organization has been reviewed. The claim that the lower part of the map portrays the Princess Martha coast of Queen Maud Land and the Palmer Peninsula is reasonable. We find that this is the most logical and in all probability the correct interpretation of the map. The geographic detail shown in the lower part of the map agrees very remarkably with the results of seismic profiles made across the top of the ice cap by a Swedish-British Antarctic expedition of 1949. This indicates the coastline has been mapped before it's covered by the ice cap. This part of Antarctica is ice-free. The ice cap in this region is now about a mile thick. We have no idea how the data on this map can be reconciled with the supposed state of geographical knowledge in 1513. Harold Z. Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force Commander. So as mentioned, there are some conflicting reports. How can this map show Antarctica with no ice? Scientists state there's been ice on this continent for millions of years. Many experts have analysed the diagram and realised it portrayed an accurate depiction of the world. Looking through old photographs can trigger a variety of emotions. For most people, they can bring back happy memories or remind them of loved ones or friends. However, it's not uncommon for people to find strange things in the background of photographs. The majority of these turn out to be funny, but for some they leave the individual with more questions than answers. This is exactly what happened with this girl. There's not much information about this photograph, but it's reported by several websites that she uploaded the photos to social media. After a few days though, people started to speculate about what was in the upper right corner. After zooming in, it appears there is a creepy apparition. Some have described it as looking like a doll, while others went down the route of it being a child. Although this may seem vague, over the years many people have come forward with creepy photographs showing apparitions in the background, and the individual in the photograph is usually left creeped out as to how it got there in the first place. One person who saw the photograph said the following: "This photograph instantly gave me chills, because I have one similar to it that was taken when I was a child. As with most parents, my mum used to always take photographs of me and my sister. On one occasion we'd gone out to visit my grandma who lives out in the countryside. She used to live in this old converted barn, and it was one of those places that you wouldn't be surprised if you found out it was haunted. While visiting grandma's, we'd always have our photographs taken. It wasn't until years later though, when me and my sister were looking back at the photographs, that we noticed something creepy. In the background was what looks like the ghost of a small girl. The eerie thing about the photograph was that you could clearly see the outline of a girl. When asking my grandma about it years later, she would go on to say that every so often she would hear giggling at the bottom of the stairs, but when she went to investigate she would never see anything. Me and my sister speculate that because the barn was old, the little girl may have lived there many years ago, and perhaps she never left. It's photographs like this that have led to the idea that perhaps these entities are able to make themselves known well after they've passed. Not only have they been picked up in photographs, but believers in the paranormal have said that apparitions are able to interact with humans, whether this is by getting someone's attention, moving objects around a house, or in rare cases causing harm. Unidentified flying objects has been a topic of mystery and confusion. various groups have given their opinions on these mysterious objects, with some believing that they originate from space, while others are of the idea that they're man-made and belong to top-secret governments from around the world. Due to recent announcements, this has only caused more confusion, and people can't make up their mind which side they're on. Photographs emerged not too long ago of a mysterious-looking craft. It was presented at the 5th China Helicopter Exposition, and people immediately made the connection with this and a UFO. The next question on people's mind was, are Chinese officials working on real flying saucers? The expo is run by the Aviation Industry Corporation of China and the Chinese People's Liberation Army Ground Force. This allows them to show off all the new tech they're working on. The UFO design caught people's attention because it's a topic that's still shrouded in mystery. But one of the more frustrating things about this is many people couldn't understand the sign. Online users soon translated the message though, and it reads as follows. The Super Great White Shark Armed Body Helicopter is a composite wing-body fusion high-speed helicopter configuration, designed for the future digital information battlefield. In the initial stage of its design, it refers to the international excellent and mature helicopter design technologies, such as the AH-64 Apache, the CH-53 Sea Stallion and Russian Ka-52, and Mi-26. While absorbing their respective advantages, it adopts the internationally popular wing-body fusion blended wing-body design, and the former. A new type of high-speed helicopter with conceptual designs of propeller blades has been successfully applied in helicopter design. This is a rough translation, but most of the details are in there. What this means though is that it's still in its early stages, and it's fair to say it's unlikely this craft is behind many of the UFOs that are witnessed. There's some that have spoke out about this object and said the following. There's no way this object is behind most of the UFO sightings reported here in the US. For one, we don't even know if this thing flies. It also looks like a giant inflatable drone, and I'm sure this isn't about to cover vast distances in a matter of seconds. Don't get me wrong, I think it looks cool and I really like the design. But for people to suggest this one prototype machine explains away all recent UFO sightings is just delusional. With another saying the following. It does sometimes make me wonder where they get the idea for these crafts. Are they designed from the unidentified flying objects that have been witnessed for hundreds of years? Another thing I find interesting is that militaries all over the world have tried to replicate these designs, and the majority of them fail. Even the US has tried to build these UFO-looking machines, and although they work to a degree, they serve no purpose other than being a novelty design. It's one of the reasons why it gets scrapped. It serves no real purpose. The Air Force Museum posted the following statement on their website. Tests with scale models at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base indicated that the cushion of air underneath the Avro car would be unstable just a few feet off the ground. The aircraft would be incapable of reaching supersonic speeds, but the testing went ahead to determine if a suitable aircraft could be developed for the Army. The first prototype, the Avro car on display, serial number 587055, was sent to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Research Center at Moffett Field, California. Their wind tunnel tests proved that the aircraft had insufficient control for high-speed flight and was aerodynamically unstable. The second Avro car prototype underwent flight tests that validated the wind tunnel's tests. If it flew more than 3 feet above the ground, the Avro car displayed uncontrollable pitch and roll motions, which the Avro engines called hubcapping. The Avro car could only reach a maximum speed of 35 miles per hour, and all attempts to end the hubcapping failed. The project was cancelled in December 1961. This is an interesting statement coming from the Air Force and NASA. Essentially, what they're saying is we can build these types of crafts, but they don't work. They are more for show and don't do anything that would be beneficial. Some have even taken this as them admitting that some of the UFOs we see in the sky are not from them. After all, we can't even replicate the shape of them. So if these crafts can only reach a max speed of 35 miles per hour, what are people encountering all around the world? The disc-shaped UFO is famous. It's one of the most cited unidentified flying objects around, and has been reported by citizens for many decades. It's these types of statements though that's caused some to look outside the box when trying to explain these crafts. There's nothing wrong with admitting that we can't build them, but it does make you question them what they are. Every year thousands of people witness UFOs from the ground. Amateur researchers have said that although it's exciting when someone witnesses or captures a UFO, the majority of them can be explained. They usually turn out to be things such as planes, weather balloons, natural phenomena, flares or military activities. A small percentage of them, however, do remain unexplained. One interesting place where these unidentified flying objects are captured is from plane windows. These are normally much harder to explain as the photograph or video is usually clearer from this viewpoint. This has led to people recording their plane ride in the hopes of capturing something unexplained. Interestingly, it's not just passengers that have come forward with their encounters. Pilots have also detailed seeing things they can't initially explain. It was reported that 3 separate pilots were left asking questions when they encountered mysterious lights in the sky. The incident occurred on Friday the 9th of November 2018. This was when a British Airways pilot contacted Shannon Air Traffic Control. The first thing the pilot wanted to know was if there was any military planes or exercises in the area. The reason being because she could see objects that were moving around really fast, and it didn't look like normal activity that's seen in the area. Air Traffic Control said there was no exercises taking place, and that whatever was there shouldn't be. It was then reported that 2 other pilots contacted ground control saying they could see multiple objects travelling at really high speeds. Air Traffic Control once again reported that there was no military exercises, and that there is nothing showing on either primary or secondary radar. The pilot said the following: "Okay, but it was moving so fast. We saw a bright light and then it just disappeared at a very high speed." The pilot said they was not on a collision route with the object, but just wondered what it was. Air Traffic Control then reported that the 3rd pilot said they were happy they weren't the only ones who saw the objects. It was reported that the UFO was moving at incredible speeds, around Mach 2. This is 2,500 km per hour, and is twice the speed of sound. So if pilots are saying they can't identify these UFOs, and military officials are saying we're unable to make these types of crafts, then what are people seeing? Many people will make interesting discoveries in their lifetime, and perhaps some of the most interesting ones are those that have an air of mystery around them. For years we've been interested in space, and the many mysteries that it holds. One such discovery that not many people have heard about is that of the mysterious USB stick. The story goes that it was discovered by a man in a small village near Berlin, Germany. The man explained how he discovered a strange-looking USB stick on the ground in a parking lot. But this USB stick appeared to be different from the normal ones that could be purchased. This one stood out because it had mysterious markings all over it, with the man further saying that he hadn't seen one like this before. He decided to pick it up and take it home, interested to see what information it could hold. When he got home, he plugged it into his laptop and opened the folders that were saved. He was surprised to see many old photographs of what appeared to be planets and other space-related objects. He couldn't explain though why this USB stick had been left on the ground, as it seemed to have held incredible images from the early days of space. It's reported that many of these photographs came from an album on the USB stick titled 1900s, which caused the man to think these were taken during the early 1900s, when interest in space was gearing up. However, it's common knowledge that early space exploration happened during the mid-1950s, with the space race going on between the Soviet Union and the United States. The launch of the Soviet Union's Sputnik 1 happened on the 4th of October 1957, with the Americans landing on the moon on the 20th of July 1969. So where do these photographs fit in? Could there have been a secret space program happening before all of this? According to Quisto, the man who found the mysterious USB stick, they had no idea who it belongs to or why it's left on the ground. Those who've seen the images have said they're genuine, and could show some secret space program that was launched without the public knowing. Others, however, have said the images are fake, and it could have been someone that was just messing around. They point to the unidentified flying objects that can be seen close to various planets as proof of it being a hoax, while others are saying these are top secret photographs that should never have been leaked to the public. 8 months ago, the individual who discovered the USB stick put a post on Reddit saying the following: "Hello Reddit community. I made this account just to share this event and decided to share this on the mystery thread, as I don't know where else to post it. My name is Quisto and I live in a small village near Berlin, close to Bernau. To make quite a long story short, I found a mysterious USB stick in a parking lot a few hours ago. I didn't know much when I saw it and I put it in my pocket. There was nothing more at the parking lot, just a silver Toshiba USB stick. It also had a strange symbol carved into it. Later today I put it into my laptop. First I had trouble opening it because the laptop said it was corrupted, and I'm not computer savvy. Regardless, I found lots of files and I have no idea what they mean. But here comes the interesting part. Among the unnamed files there were many images and videos of what seemed like planets and space related stuff. They all seemed old, from the 1900s. The videos kind of shocked me as they seemed to show what looked like aliens and UFOs. I watched lots of sci-fi movies to know what they look like. I don't know the story behind the USB stick and who possessed it, but I decided to share this with you. Some images seem to show surfaces close up of planets, and some seem to be edited and blacked out. The videos are too freaky to describe. A friend said the stick contains old Voyager satellite recordings, and files that are not supposed to be seen by the public, as he's never seen anything like this before, and is very interested in space related stuff. I will look more into the files and keep you up to date. Once I figure out how to upload them, I will show you the images. As of today though, all these photographs have done is cause more confusion, with people arguing over whether they're genuine or not. Interestingly, some photographs showed an object that some says looks eerily similar to the mysterious Black Knight satellite. Although mainstream scientists have said that the Black Knight satellite is nothing more than a made-up story, others who've studied the satellite have said that it's very much real, and could be at the centre of a massive cover-up. Scientists have said there's around 3,000 human-made satellites in orbit around the Earth, but the most mysterious one that's been capturing people's attention for many years now is that of the Black Knight satellite. Those who've studied it have said the satellite is one of the oldest ones that's currently orbiting our planet, and that scientists have known about it for years but have tried to cover up its existence, and downplay that it's been captured on camera various times. It's considered by some to be an ancient object that's been transmitting signals for thousands of years. This mysterious satellite has been featured in the media since the late 1950s, and it's become one of the most talked about objects in space. Some have even said this satellite was placed there in order to spy on the human race. This theory goes into detail that an advanced race once landed on the planet and helped humans evolve into what we are today. Those who believe in this idea say the proof of this can be found in various objects scattered across our planet, from the incredible megalithic structures that can be found, to ancient carvings that show giants and mysterious objects. Once this advanced civilization left for the stars after sharing their knowledge with us, they left behind an advanced satellite so they could always see what we was doing. One of the first people to allegedly pick up on the object was that of Nikola Tesla, a Serbian-American inventor who would change the world we lived in. Those who've been looking for signs of extraterrestrial life have said that this satellite is one of the best pieces of evidence we have so far. As some have pointed out though, one of the issues nowadays when it comes to UFOs is that there's so many good fakes out there, and this makes it difficult to find the genuine ones. It's important to note that researchers and scientists have said the Black Light satellite is not real, and that what people are seeing is just pieces of space junk. Another thing to remember is that the space above our planet is littered with old satellites and materials, with some researchers saying the space debris that is high in altitude will stay in orbit the longest, with low orbit objects dropping back to Earth within several years. Although the USB stick discovery is certainly interesting, and did at the time generate many interesting conversations, the topic has seemingly been left, with many not knowing the truth behind the strange discovery. Those that believe the photographs are a hoax have said they could have been part of a school project, whereas others say they haven't seen these photographs anywhere else, and it could be part of something that everyday people are not aware of. Quisto, the individual who put up the original post on Reddit, can no longer be contacted. Some see this as either he was told to remove his account, or that the images were fake and he wanted to get away from all the comments. As some have pointed out though, he never had a motive behind publishing these images, and just wanted to know what it was he found. As mentioned, the last idea that's been put forward by some is that the USB stick was placed there by someone hoping to pull off a prank. Although the images can still be seen on various websites, it seems we're no closer to understanding the origin of the photographs, or why they were placed on this USB stick and left on the ground. For years now, information surrounding mysterious creatures, objects and other phenomena have become much easier to access. As information surrounding these strange phenomena have continued to grow, impossible to predict parallels have begun to surface, begging for a much deeper interpretation of reports and how they all interconnect. This has led to a new development I want to start in this channel. It's going to be known as ACIO reports. The ACIO reports will feature an ACIO, an abbreviation of the term anomalous creatures, items and occurrences. These will include those that have captured the attention of researchers, of whom believe they can track, understand and research the theoretical makeup of such anomalous entities. Not only could this help to establish serious research efforts in the fields otherwise completely ignored, but it would also help propel the mystery of such entities into the forefront of natural science, growing our understanding of the world around us. So many times in the past have interesting characters claimed impossible creature sightings and other fantastic phenomena, facing the blunt criticisms of people claiming their information was far from factual, only to be proven legitimate later down the line, with none of the credit. An example of such a report was made surrounding an elusive creature known as the African unicorn, of which would later become a proven species now known as the okapi, that many researchers had denied existed within the Congo. Another example is the existence of the ether, proven by Nikola Tesla with his advancements in radio wave technology, only to have the name be recognized as the electromagnetic spectrum, despite Nikola Tesla naming it the ether, for its ether properties and ancient magic references, an effort made to delegitimize his claims of mysticism. The first report we'll be taking a look at is that of Bigfoot. I often get emails sent to me by you guys about strange things you've managed to capture. One that was sent to me a while back included an interesting photograph. The sender started off by saying they work in California, and they often find themselves outdoors. This is due to their job. On this particular occasion, they was with their friend out in the sticks when they came across something they couldn't explain. The person details how their friend called them over because he'd found something interesting. At first the pair couldn't understand what they were looking at. They could only describe it as being the arm of a large humanoid. After the friend kicked it, they could see the arm was almost double the size of that of an average man's. It had brown fur and seemed to be missing the thumb, although the bone was still present. The friends then remembered they had a piece of black tarpaulin in their trunk. They got it and then kicked the arm onto it, noting it was very hairy and they could even see the tendons running through the hand. Although this story sounds incredible, various people throughout the years have tried to fake evidence in regards to Bigfoot. Footprints and other body parts have been found all across the world, and one thing that genuine researchers have noticed is that there's been a huge surge in fakes in the last few years alone. One of the issues is that it's easy to fake evidence. Bigfoot molds can be purchased online which can be used to create tracks. Regardless of this, there's still those that take the existence of this creature seriously. The Sasquatch creature seems to stand somewhere between 8 and 10 feet tall. Some witness accounts have claimed the creature stood at nearly 15 feet tall, however, so variation in height amongst the species could be a factor. It's for this reason that the Sasquatch is expected to have an aging development similar to humans, and most likely being birthed in the same way humans are. The creature is believed to have a total arm length of 120% the height of its body, similar to that of ape-like creatures with elongated forearms. Unlike an ape, however, the creature is believed to be bipedal. The bipedal nature of the creature most likely points to the theory of a working voice box, as the head would need to be in a position that allows for bipedal movement. Further evidence shows that the Sasquatch has a massive big toe to help with balancing issues, with it being nearly 3 times in volume in comparison to the size when adjusted for human scale. The Sasquatch also seems to be covered in hair all over its body. Nearly everyone around the world has heard of Bigfoot, or a creature similar in design and behaviour to Bigfoot. This leads to a tremendous amount of reports, witness sightings, video evidence, physical evidence, footprints and theories into the creature that cannot be entirely explored within this document. Throughout the video, we'll be taking a look at the most convincing pieces of evidence surrounding Bigfoot, and what each piece of evidence helps to contribute to the theories surrounding this creature. Back in 1925, a private photographer of whom was a proud and widely respected member of the Royal Geological Society, named N.A. Tombazi, wrote in incredible reports that first popularized the Sasquatch creature, and eventually led to his own reputation later being completely destroyed. It was common for Tombazi to find himself in strange, isolated places around the world, as he would often spend countless days alone in an effort to catalogue geographical strata, or find new gorges or valleys in the hopes of making revolutionary geographical scientific discoveries in the field. As he found himself exploring the area deep within the Zimu Glacier, Tombazi claimed to have spotted a rather strange creature standing no more than 200 to 300 yards away from him. The creature, as he described, appeared to be that of a humanoid creature, in which he writes in his report as the following: "Unquestionably the figure in the outline was exactly like a human being, walking upright and stopping occasionally to pull at some short bushes. It shows up dark against the snow as far as I could make out, and it wore no clothes of any kind." The sighting of the creature continued for a minute before the creature ran off and disappeared completely from his sight. Baffled by the sighting, he quickly gathered as much data and information as he could. He noted he was approximately 15,000 feet above sea level, and gathered information about the bushes, plant life and environment of the region. Shortly after this gathered information, Tombazi left the area to locate his companions. When he returned roughly 2 hours later, Tombazi and his companions scoured the mountain and found evidence of footprints, in which he described as being similar to that of a man in shape. However, the feet appeared to be 7 inches long and 4 inches wide, but were undoubtedly that of a bipedal creature. It was his written report and gathered evidence that helped to lay the foundation for what would later be considered the Yeti or Sasquatch creature, and would lead to the first expeditions into uncovering the truth. It was not until the early 1950s that the nationwide headlines began running the story of the mysterious and elusive Yeti creature. that many would later go on to compare to the unending amount of Sasquatch sightings made all throughout the United States. Back in 1951, a group of hikers were already making headlines for their attempt to scale Mount Everest, and the endless amount of training they had taken to see the journey to the end of their life-threatening trip. The group came well prepared with the equipment and mental fortitude necessary for their expedition to be seen as a success. But most importantly, in order to prove their climb, they brought along a state-of-the-art camera to take high-quality photographs once they reached the mountain's peak. In direct conflict to their major achievement, the headlines that ran all across the country after the group had finished their ascent was not that of their incredible trek to the top of the world's tallest mountain, but rather that of their incredibly high-quality images that they had snapped of what appears to be anatomically correct footprints of a strange humanoid-like creature living at an incredibly high altitude in the region. The footprints were originally found by Michael Ward and were later pointed out to fellow members of the hiking group. Eric Shipton quickly got high-quality photographs of the prints, while placing down his ice pick next to it to show off the length and width of the incredible find. Many skeptics had argued the authenticity of the footprint, but research analysis have found anatomically correct details so perfect that it would have been impossible to fake. The footprint showed that the big toe of the creature appeared to be at the perfect size and volume one would see in a creature of a massive size, especially one needed for adequate balance, and the depth of certain areas of the footprint showed a correct distribution of weight that the hikers would never have been able to accurately reproduce. Today the photograph is seen as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence of the Yeti creature, and even helps to shed light into its weight, size and evolution. At the height of the Yeti craze and the fascination the public had on the strange and elusive creature, the Daily Mail worked to gather their own evidence and make cutting-edge reports on finding the creature themselves. After only 3 years since the photographs were taken by Eric Shipton, the Daily Mail sent out an expedition team on the 19th of March in 1954 to go to the same area the hikers had discovered the compelling evidence of the creature and begin their research into uncovering the truth of their creation. The research team found strange evidence of the native population having symbolic paintings of the Yeti, as well as myths as to what it could be, with many of the locals even claiming to have seen the creature on their hikes. When the mountaineering leader John Angelo Jackson made the trek up the mountain, he photographed overwhelming evidence of different unidentifiable tracks of flattened footprints from what appeared to be a large biped. These photographs, however, paled in comparison to the evidence the research team would soon uncover in their efforts to prove the existence of the creature. As they further investigated local myths and legends amongst the population at the base of the mountain, it appeared that as the locals warmed up to the researchers' inquiries, they began to reveal to them evidence they have gathered of the creature on their own. The researchers were then taken to a monastery in the region, and were told by those who lived there that they was in possession of the removed scalp from one of these creatures. The monastery then allowed the researchers to take the scalp back home for further scientific examinations, and these were made by Dr. Biswas. The doctor found conclusive evidence that the scalp belonged to no known animal at the time of its findings, and that it was not taken from an ape or bear anywhere in the region. Unfortunately, DNA could not be taken from the specimen, as an unknown individual had the scalp completely bleached, and all that remains of the scalp are a collection of cut-up hairs that can only be examined microscopically. The combination of these expeditions and scientific theories would launch the Yeti, also known as the Sasquatch, into popularity, as many believe that the creature could have similar intelligence to humans, given its elusive nature, and that the creature was an undiscovered species all across the world. One of the great things about space and space exploration is the number of cameras that have been deployed. These give everyday people a chance to view some of the incredible sights of our universe. Incredibly though, people across the planet have been able to snap strange objects close to our planet and the Sun. One place where these objects are commonly seen is that of NASA's Hilo Viewer project. This is used by UFO researchers daily, as they say it's one of the best places to view UFOs. Deployed as part of the European Space Agency and NASA's HEDO-Viewer project, the Solar Heliospheric Observatory allows anyone to view its entire library. Over the years, it's provided some incredible photographs of our Sun. However, in recent times, some have noticed some strange anomalies. Various websites have just posted an image which allegedly shows a giant cube-like object. Interestingly, they say that whatever this object is, it must be interested in our Sun, as it can be seen here every couple of weeks or so. This has only caused people to speculate about what this mysterious object might be. Some put forward the idea that it may have been exiting the Sun, while others who have studied these objects have said they just hover around it, and that they can be seen leaving the area at high speeds. So what is it that people are seeing? As of right now, UFO researchers have said that they think these crafts are not of this world, and could even be monitoring our planet. Some go on to say that these giant cubes are hundreds of miles in length, and that perhaps we should look into why these objects are so interested in our Sun. They go on to say that for years mysterious objects have been seen in and around our Sun. Those who have measured the objects say it ranges from being the size of planet Earth to even bigger. This is why they rule out that it originates on Earth. One website that looks into these accounts is that of ET Database, and they've suggested in the past these giant crafts have been over 25 times the size of planet Earth. ET Database has even said that large flares that can be seen were caused by giant UFOs exiting the Sun. Other UFO researchers have pointed out that it's one of the best places to see UFOs. Interestingly, they say that different shaped crafts can be seen leaving our Sun, and that some of them even stick around for several hours, before making a quick getaway. Due to this, amateur researchers have spent countless hours watching these live feeds and looking through old images, only to find the same shaped objects close to our Sun. One individual said the following about the anomalies. "I've been watching the Soho cameras for years and I've seen some strange things. This most recent photo, however, is one of the best ones to come from Soho, and I think it could be the real deal. For years now, these cameras have been capturing these crafts, and no one seems to know what they are. For the past 5 years they keep reappearing at our Sun and no one seems to know why. Others, however, are not so sure, with one person saying the following. If this was a real craft, it would be absolutely massive. No object could get that close to the Sun due to the heat it gives off. As of right now, UFO researchers think that these crafts have been visiting our Sun for years, and even suggest they may be using it as some sort of portal, or that the Sun could be some type of fueling station. NASA has provided an official explanation on their Soho page. They said the following. Ever since launch, there's been a number of people who claim to have seen flying saucers and other objects in Soho images. Although some of these supposed pictures of UFOs can seem quite intriguing, they've always turned out to have quite an ordinary cause when examined by experienced Soho scientists. In recent days, we've been receiving so many questions and claims that we'd like to set the record straight. We've never seen anything that even suggests there are UFOs out there. In the past, we've been accused of covering up UFO evidence when we present our explanations, and of refusing to comment or climbing up when we give up on somebody who won't accept our explanations. While we don't expect to convince everybody, we hope that this page and links can provide some information for the curious who want to investigate the claims on their own. Most commonly, UFO claims are due to perfectly natural flaws, or artifacts in our publicly available data. Some of the things that people are seeing are planets, cosmic rays, software glitches, and debris. Another NASA official said the following about their claims. The majority of these alleged UFO sightings can be easily explained. One of the things that people see is space debris that's made its way into the front of the cameras. When these pieces of debris are up close, it can look like an unidentified flying object. In reality, people are just seeing a common piece of space debris. According to a former NASA engineer, James Oberg, he went on to say that these objects are just space dandruff floating in front of cameras. When they appear in front of cameras, they give off the effect that something much larger is there. when in reality what people are seeing has a natural origin. He said the following about the discoveries. I've had enough experience with real spaceflight to realise that what's being seen in many videos is nothing beyond the norm, and what's being seen is fully mundane phenomena occurring in unearthly settings. One person didn't agree with this statement though and went on to say the following. Although I can agree the majority of these sightings are natural, I fail to believe that these giant cubes are just space debris. They are always the same size and colour, which makes me think that the cube isn't the object, but rather this cube is placed there to hide something behind it. The reason I say this is because the cubes do appear to be the same shape every time, so I think that instead of editing out what's behind it, or editing the image every time an object is seen, one of the giant cubes is placed on top of it. Not only does this look like a processing error, but it also hides whatever was there. I've seen objects around our sun for many years now. You can use a decent telescope to see them. I have one where I've placed on top of it a sun filter. On a few occasions I've been able to watch strange objects around our sun, before they quickly shoot off. As of today though, NASA scientists and researchers have said that what's being seen here is nothing strange, and is just space debris. They say that pareidolia also plays into this, where people's brains are playing tricks on them. They also point to people wanting to find alien life, so when something slightly strange is discovered, people automatically go straight to aliens. Space is one of the last frontier for humans. Many scientists and researchers have expressed their interest in exploring the stars. However, with the universe being so vast, the question is, are we ever going to make it past our solar system? Various people have given their opinions on these questions, with some individuals such as the late Dr. Hawking saying we'll be a spacefaring species, whereas others have said it's very unlikely the human race will ever make it past the solar system. However, there's another group of people that say this can be done, and they point to unidentified flying objects. With the Pentagon and Department of Defense admitting that these objects are very much real, it's caused a lot of excitement around this topic. One idea that some have put forward is that whoever is piloting these crafts have managed to create the technology to travel vast distances. It's not just been in recent times that mysterious looking crafts have been observed. In fact, they've been witnessed for hundreds of years now, with various people describing different shaped objects flying in our skies. These mysterious objects have been depicted in paintings and can even be seen in cave art. Every day these mysterious objects are witnessed, and while many of these can be explained as natural phenomena, aircrafts, debris, animals or other objects, some do remain a mystery. Right now space agencies are looking for life outside of our planet. It's also important to remember that UFO stands for Unidentified Flying Object, and does not mean the object in question is alien in nature. It's only been in recent years that people have connected the two. The topic of UFOs is an interesting one. These unidentified flying objects have been witnessed by people for hundreds of years, even before the first operated airplane made it into the skies. This has caused various people to put forward different theories to explain these objects. Over the last few weeks, residents in Turkey have been reporting an increase in UFO activity. Various photographs and videos have been making their way online, showing what appears to be glowing orbs and silent objects in the sky. One of these videos shows strange white orbs flying around buildings, until lightning lights up the sky and reveals a large object sitting stationary in the sky. When this footage made its way online, it caused various people to put forward different theories to try and explain it. Some suggested that the UFOs were genuine, and that the orbs could have been sent out by the larger craft, while others said the video could be real. But what we're seeing in the sky is just a natural phenomena that gives off the appearance that a large object is there. Skeptics also said the footage is most likely fake, and created using special effects. Those who have researched unidentified flying objects have said the orbs are the most common UFOs that were witnessed, saying that this phenomenon is being reported by people all over the world. These glowing orbs come in a variety of different colours, ranging from blue, red, orange, yellow, pink, silver, green and black, and most people who have seen them have said they appear to pulsate. It's not known what they are, but some have linked them to UFOs. It's important to remember that a UFO is an unidentified flying object. It does not mean that the object in question is alien in nature. It's only been in recent years that people have connected the two. Interestingly, Turkey has had its fair share of UFO sightings, and is actually the location where one of the most impressive UFOs was captured. The event happened back in 2008, and is regarded by UFO researchers as the clearest UFO ever taken. Between the years of 2007 and 2009, Turkey saw an increase in UFO activity. Residents started to report strange objects that weren't normally witnessed. Several local residents came forward and described what appeared to be a large silver object, disc in appearance. One of the things that the residents noted was that whatever this object was, it would sit silently in the sky. Fishermen were also able to get a good look at the object. However, it soon vanished into the night and people soon forgot about it. That was until it returned soon after. In 2009, the late Roger Lear actually observed the strange object while it was underneath the moon. It was during this period that the famous video was taken. Turkey UFO case have done a great job at looking at all the details of the event, and although the cruise ship theory was soon put forward, they suggested this couldn't have been the case. The object was too high in the sky at the time of recording for it to have been a cruise ship. They stated that the unidentified flying object was approximately 7.9 degrees above the horizon, far higher than any boat could have been during that time. Another thing is that when researching the automatic identification system, it was made apparent that there was no cruise ships or boats that would have been in the range of the camera during that time. Not only this, but Yasin Yauman, one of the first people to record this mysterious craft, said that the media only posted and told people about it being over the water, saying that the craft was actually seen above land several times. On the 30th of July 2007, 31st of August 2008 and the 14th of May 2009, the object was recorded as being above land, with various residents in the area being witness to this. One researcher though by the name of Andres Duat has suggested that what people witnessed was not a UFO, but rather tourist boats in the distance. He said the following: "We can summarize the probable characteristics of these alleged UFOs to suggest a specific hypothesis. The objects are straight or just slightly bent specular surfaces. There are different designs for them. They could be part of a bigger object that can't be seen given the circumstances. There are possible sheets of transparent material. They are probably in the sea. All of this takes us to the following hypothesis. The objects are lateral shark or moth-styled windows in some boats or small yachts." It's interesting to note that researchers at the Science and Technology Research Board of Turkey said the following: "The objects in the footage have the structure of a specific material that is definitely not made up of any kind of computer animation, balloon, prop or model, or special effects used for simulation in a studio." One UFO researcher said the following about the event: It's sad because as soon as the cruise ship theory was put forward, everyone forgot about the case. You have one of the best pieces of evidence here, and one theory has tainted people's view on it. One of the issues was someone released a photograph showing the object over the top of a cruise ship, making it appear to be a perfect match, when in reality the craft was much larger than the top of the cruise ship. What many people forget is that the image was cropped and taken from one frame of the video, where it just so happens to fit the cruise ship. However, this image was edited and didn't match. Data also shows that where the craft was seen, no cruise ships were close to it. Not only this, but there were many different shaped crafts seen during these few years, and although the large silver object was the most witnessed and has become the most famous, there were other shaped crafts seen during this time. The object also stayed in the same area for several hours on end, much higher in the sky to be able to say it was a boat. Interestingly, it also has some similarities to the famous Phoenix lights. Commonly referred to as the lights over Phoenix, it appears that there is overwhelming evidence of a mass sighting event of a large number of unidentified flying objects, seen throughout the skies of the combined states of Arizona, Nevada and the Mexican state of Sonora, and this happened during the late 90s. According to a number of individual reports, the event seemed to have occurred on the 13th of March back in 1997, between the hours of 7:30 and 10:30, and detailed a wide number of witness reports, claiming that several thousand people witnessed a triangular formation of lights that flew for more than 300 miles before disappearing. Ufologists have gathered the combined reports of the sighting to form the 3-hour timeline. Beginning at roughly 7:55, a man reportedly spotted a large V-shaped aircraft over Henderson, Nevada, that was described as being the size of a Boeing 747, and had 6 different lights on its leading edge. The next sighting then occurred at 8:15, when an unnamed police officer filed a report stating that they had witnessed an aircraft that fit the same description of the one seen over Henderson, Nevada, and this one was passing over the town of Paulden, Arizona. These sightings would continue for the next few hours, with the governor of Arizona, Phi Symington, claiming to have seen the lights pass over as well. Though some claim that the event could have been a large experimental aircraft used by the United States military, others aren't so sure, as many other sightings of unidentified flying objects were made during this time that were described as being otherworldly. Sadly, the UFO above Turkey has been massively overlooked in some people's eyes. The topic of ghosts is one that's been debated for years. There's those that believe in the topic, those who have claimed to have experienced something strange which led them to believe, and those that state the topic lacks solid evidence. Various studies have been conducted though that show that many people do believe in the paranormal. For example, one study that was conducted back in 2015 by Chapman University showed that over 40% of Americans believe that places can be haunted by spirits. For years, people across the planet have reported encountering otherworldly apparitions and other unexplainable phenomena. Various photographs have been presented which allegedly show mysterious beings, and those who study this subject have said that certain cameras are able to capture anomalies, and that these apparitions could be behind what an individual is experiencing. Some of the most common entities captured on camera includes that of the orb, the shadow person and the lady in white. But now scientists have said that a new imaging technique could once and for all prove if ghosts are real. The technique is known as ghost imaging, and these special cameras take photos of the actual light bouncing off an object. It relies on a theory called quantum entanglement, to take photos of objects by recording the photons with a quantum link to others that did bounce off of it. Scientists still have varying theories on just how this works, so no clear explanation can be given. The camera itself uses highly sensitive camera beams that are connected by quantum entanglement. One beam hits the object, the other beam that does not hit the object is recorded. This new technique has been tested and scientists have said the results look promising. due to this camera that relies on an object that gives off light, many have put forward the theory this could capture spirits. Various paranormal researchers have said that ghosts are actual beings and can give off a sign they're there, whether that's interacting with what's around them or being captured on things like cameras. If what people are seeing is genuine, then this new camera technique should be able to pick up on them, and end the argument once and for all whether ghosts are real or not. Over 52% of people living in the United Kingdom believe that ghosts are real, with a lower percentage saying that they've encountered something they deem as paranormal. One of the best pieces of evidence is that of photographs, and there hasn't been a shortage of alleged ghost photographs that have been shared over the years. One of the issues people have is trying to work out if the photograph is genuine or not. This hasn't stopped believers from coming forward with their encounters and theories. However, some scientists have said they've worked out why people report seeing ghosts. A Canadian neuroscientist has studied the paranormal for some years now, and has suggested that what people are seeing comes down to the electromagnetic field. He suggests that magnetic fields which we can't detect on a conscious level are behind many strange experiences, as this effect can make it seem like there's someone else in the room with you, when in reality all that's happening is unusual activity patterns in the brain. There are those that don't believe this, however, and say that although this does likely explain some encounters, there's others who have seen things and state that it has nothing to do with the brain playing tricks. Ghosts, spirits, angels, demons and many other such paranormal entities have captivated the minds of humans. For years we've heard stories about these mysterious entities, and a few of us have even experienced them firsthand. Despite all the advancements made in science and technology, and despite scientists being able to unravel some of the most complex mysteries in the universe, it seems we've completely skipped over one particular field of study. It's the study of the paranormal. Many ancient civilizations studied paranormal activities, ways of interacting with different paranormal entities, and harnessing their power for the greater good. It's believed that some of the ancient civilizations had mastered the art of real magic, and that they could not only cast extremely effective spells, but it's said they were also able to summon some of the most powerful paranormal entities. However, our civilization seems more inclined towards technology and things that can be explained according to the various laws of science. But from time to time, different paranormal entities seem to give hints of their presence one way or the other. Interestingly, one place you wouldn't expect there to be signs of the paranormal is that of our oceans. Oceans cover more than 70% of Earth's surface, and according to popular belief, ghosts, spirits and other paranormal entities tend to reside at places that are far from human population. This makes oceans and the numerous small islands that lie in them an ideal place for such entities. Throughout history, many sailors have reported seeing strange phenomena in different parts of the ocean. However, there's one phenomenon that has happened over and over again, and yet it can't be explained by anyone. Over the past couple of centuries, there have been a number of reports of ghost ships sailing around the world. Some of the most famous ghost ships include the Octavius, the Flying Dutchman and the Mary Celeste. There have been many theories about the ghost ships. Some theories point to sea pirates taking down crew members and stealing their belongings, to mysterious circumstances that can't be explained. However, all the theories have been dismissed because of lack of credible evidence, and to this day no one can say for sure about what happened to some of the most famous ghost ships in history. There is one theory that holds an unknown paranormal entity responsible for the ghost ships. It's believed that some mysterious entity resides in the deepest pockets in some of the most isolated islands in the world, and sometimes this paranormal entity preys on the crew of the ships that travel nearby. It's believed that it preys on all the crew members until they pass away, and then leaves the ships looking for its next victim. Not only this, but it's said by some that the entity will ensure the ship reaches its destination, so that people can see what it's done. The most famous ghost ship story is that of the Mary Celeste. It was an American merchant ship, and on the 5th of December 1972, it was discovered deserted in the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores Islands, when Mary Celeste was discovered by a Canadian ship. It was under partial sail and was still in sail-worthy condition. The last entry into Mary Celeste's log was made 10 days before it was found. What happened to the crew of Mary Celeste? Under what circumstances did the crew of the ship abandon it? Was there any paranormal entity that was responsible for the mysterious disappearance of the crew? All these questions continue to baffle historians. Most of the believers of the paranormal entity responsible for ghost ships points to the Mary Celeste case, and raises some very valid arguments that point to the presence of such an entity. As of right now, the scientific world has said there's no proof of the paranormal, and that when science is applied, the majority of these stories can easily be explained. Perhaps though it's humans' obsessions with trying to explain things that's caused us to overlook certain topics. After all, although we're intelligent, there has to be things that even we can't explain, and for some this is the paranormal. So what do you make of these interesting and mysterious discoveries? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below, and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.